Sandra all the time is here with the cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra. And
That's right, folks. Everyone is telling their mama about the cold hard truth. Welcome to another episode with more truth telling, more problem solving, and of course, more tea spilling than ever before. Sit back, students, grab your tea and turn up the volume because class is now in session. Call in at 936-2626 because your voice matters. Share your opinion on issues that matter the most to you. Get your water ready, get your tea ready.
Sandra all the time is here with the cold hard truth. She's the ears and the eyes for me and you. Every day, everyone want to hear from Sandra. And every time on the air, she's getting better. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama, call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. And when they start fighting, they calling Sandra. And they start robbing, they calling Sandra. And if the rooster fly in the kitchen, they calling Sandra. And when they want to get the money, they calling Sandra. And even when they lose their honey, they calling Sandra. Every day, everyone wanna hear from Sandra. And all the time on the air, she's getting better. Some people say, honey child, that she's a savior. She's not afraid to say, and she will tell you. Tell your sister, tell your brother, tell your mama to call Sandra in the morning and in the evening. They always calling Sandra. Tell your brother, tell your father, tell your mama to call Sandra in the morning, in the evening. They always calling Sandra. Politicians start fighting, calling Sandra. And when they start the bad parking, calling Sandra. Landlord and tenant dispute, calling Sandra. And all the problem with the youth, they calling Sandra. Honey child. When they owe you plenty money, calling Sandra. And they run away with your honey, calling Sandra. Every accident around, calling Sandra. And if your dog can't be found, calling Sandra. From overseas, calling Sandra, and even the burglaries.
All right. Happy Friday. And guess what? It's the last day of the month, February the 28th. It's a short month. So welcome one and welcome all. We are here for it. We got a hot day ahead for you. Honey child. I had to play the original song a couple times this morning, get myself sorted out in the studio. Oh my goodness, hold on. Woo! I don't have no tea this morning. Miss Stacy not here, so I'm drinking water. And of course, Miss Miss Facey, I know you're looking at me. No, you're not looking yet because I haven't turned on the camera. But I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, I bet you anything that she is drinking ice cold water first thing in the morning. Yikes. I am. I'm sorry. I forgot not to put ice in my water. Oh, I struggle with drinking water. And one of the ways that makes it more palatable for me is to throw some ice in it. But I think I put in too much this morning. Yes, honey child. So, and it's not really good for my voice, to be honest. Probably the hot tea would serve me better, but when I don't have help in the mornings, I ain't got time to brew no tea, honey child. I'm like, ugh, get up. All right, folks, let's try that again. You know what happened? In the IT world, I had the dreaded blue screen of death. Fatal error. I don't know. The computer came up and I was like, no. So when that happens, honey child, all you can do is reboot everything. So don't know what caused it this morning. Got to message my IT man and say, honey child, or in that case, just honey, can you look at this? What happened? The computer crashed. Thankfully, it's back up. Yes. It must know that a hot day's coming. It was like, Lord, I need a reboot before we even get started. What a hot mess. All right. Everybody okay? We're good around here. I was just saying it's the last day of the month. So happy end of February, the 28th. And tomorrow is already March the 1st. We're just rolling through. We do have Mr. Rolston. I see you, honey chill, sitting in the back of the studio here waiting for us. We're going to bring him in just a second. Lots happening on social media. So I'm not going to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but I do want to address this because it would be remiss of me if I don't address this video. Ay. What a hot mess, child. Where do we begin with this hot mess of a situation? First of all, I think most of you are very much aware of my position of, and this is across the board. I want to make this very, very clear. I am not here on this platform or any other platform, people who know me in my personal life as well. You know, I'm not about spreading hate towards any group, any individuals. You know, I speak the truth, and I guess some people think that that's hateful, but there's no intent there. You know, it's to inform people, keep people honest, and speak the truth. It's unfortunate that our people, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community, have an immense, and when I say people, let me qualify that because I know a lot of you, like me, don't feel that way, but we still have a significant number of people who do. And unfortunately, I have to address them a lot of times on an individual basis. And this time as a community, in case you guys have forgotten what my position is, I support the members of that community. They're my fellow Caymanians. They're my brothers and sisters. Generally speaking, not, you know, necessarily my family, but yes, they could be. I mean, I don't know. You know, they're cousins. I've got cousins who are members of the community. And so I just want to make it very, very clear. I need to adjust that screen in the back, that I support them. And what I don't support are people who go around with this vitriol that is absolutely disgusting and hateful towards them. It demonstrates a certain amount of ignorance, as well as maybe there's something innately that those individuals are feeling. I mean, I'm not going to play the video here, obviously. It's too much profanity and it has a lot of hate in it. And I haven't had an opportunity to even go and read the questions because I was working late into the night last night, read the comments, sorry. But I just want to genuinely say that this is something that I cannot support. When I first got the video, my first thought, ironically, the person who sent it to me, his brother is a member of the community. And Caymanians, when I tell you Caymanians, I'm not talking about a Caymanian that just came here 5 years ago. These are multi-generational West Bears. Tracy, are we still live on radio? Can somebody just confirm that we're on radio? We should be, I think. Nope, somebody said not on radio. All right, give me 1 second. I have to play, I think, the radio connection disconnected. Ay. All right, give me 1 second. Let me play a music bed to get us back on radio. So just let me grab something. 1 second for me, honey chill. 1 second.
talking about. This world's gone crazy, and I'm trying to find a way out. Nobody knows where we're going, or if we're going at all. Nobody cares if we stand, if we have nowhere to fall. It's a singing symphony playing.
Okay, we're gonna have to keep an eye on that because yesterday we had an outage. I think it was just specific to our residents, but both Flow and Logic, because remember I have redundancy here. They both went out sometime in the afternoon, I think around 3:00. And then I don't know what Marlon did when he came home to get them back up. But honey child, don't y'all make me go use that link. What's it called from Musk? What his satellite link called again? Cyber, not the Cybertruck. Lord, what is his link thing called again? Whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, I think radio's back and we're good. So, yes, Starlink, there you go. I knew it was something link. Thank you guys so much. So I just want to make it clear that my position, I don't want y'all to ever confuse it, is one of tolerance. It's one of not just tolerance, it's one of acceptance of our brothers and sisters in the community for who they are. And they're good people. They're intelligent people. They're hardworking people. They're Caymanians. They are expats. They are white, black, in between. They run the gamut. I found the video very, very disturbing. The first person that sent it to me, my initial thought was, I'm not going to post this because this is some idiot who's obviously a Caymanian, who probably has some issues of his own. He might need therapy to go and check out and see, why he even feels so strongly in this issue. Because a lot of times people who feel extremely strongly about it, there's a reason why. And y'all know what I'm talking about. They have some demons of their own that they need to check. And so 445 comments so far. I know a lot of you, over 62,000 views on this video. It's very, very sad. And as I continued to get the video, I said, okay, I'm going to share it because the message has to be, this isn't who we are, right? This is the kind of thing that visitors to this country will get a hold of and they will make it go viral. So I thought, as a Caymanian who owns a media house, we needed to get ahead of this. We needed to put the messaging straight that we don't accept this kind of rhetoric. We don't accept threatening people with assault and this sort of thing. And we needed to do that before it hits international media. And then they start to ask questions and then we react. And that's why I decided to actually share the video. I'm very, very disappointed. I understand that this young man comes from, his family members. Some of them reached out to me last night and said that we should be receiving an apology from his mother. What I want to receive is an apology from him. Make the magnitude of your disrespect. Your apology should match the magnitude of your disrespect. Okay? His disrespect was massive. And what this young man should do, since he'd recorded it, and obviously he recorded it and released it to other people with the full understanding that this would go viral. You don't release this kind of video and think, oh, just one person's going to see it and they're not going to share this, and this doesn't become a point of discussion. So he needs to do another video apologizing, sincerely apologizing for what he said and what he was threatening these individuals with, which is violence against tourists. And I cannot accept that under any circumstances. That's all I'm going to say about it this morning because we do have guests coming on in the studio. So good morning to one and good morning to all. Happy Friday. Akil, 42 degrees, nice and chilly where you are. Selvin, where you say you love the Calypso dress. Well, it's a top that is very much multicolored. Every time I wear it, people love it. I feel like I'm Joseph with the multicolored coat or something. But thank you very, very much. He says, hope that's not a sign that you'll be turning it up today. Of course. You know, it's Friday. You're a regular. You should know better. Strong Will says, Sandy, you look lovely today. Can I get that top? Wow, this top is a winner. Every time I wear it, you guys are like, we love it. Appreciate it. Risa says, can we ask candidates about their position on child molesters and challenging the laws allowing them to get, oh my God, girl, I have a battle that's going on at the moment with the courts. Because you know how we can't even get a sex offenders registry in this country? Let me tell you what is happening. And I emailed the courts and I was hoping to respond for a response already, which I haven't gotten. So I want to put this out there. I want to let you guys know what I'm working on. The courts are now prohibiting us in our news reporting from telling you guys who these individuals are. So a guy was just sentenced, and the order of the court is that we cannot name him. He's been previously named in other reports, right? Now that he's been sentenced, we can't name him. I am so flabbergasted by this. I have reached out to the Chief Justice. I think this is wrong. There's several justices that appear to be doing this as a routine and regular thing now. And I think the narrative is being pushed by their lawyers, right? So the defendants complain. And I need our legislators to fix this because I don't like them to interfere with the judiciary, but this has got to be fixed, all right? So what they're doing is the defense attorneys are making this argument that, oh, you know, the victim is going to impact the victim. No. We can report, media can report these stories in such a way that it does not link to who the victim is, right? And so we can't get a sex offenders registry. Now the courts are starting to dictate to us in their orders. They order, we cannot name who these defendants are. And let me tell you something, this is absolutely egregious and ridiculous. Every single candidate who's running for public office, you guys need to be reaching out to the judiciary and letting them know if you have to legislate this, then you legislate it. The media knows their role. We never, ever want to compromise the victim, right? But they've taken this narrative so far now that they are claiming, hear this conundrum. They're claiming that, oh, you know, the victim might read your story and know that that's their assailant. I'm like, what the hell? Are you serious? So they are prohibiting us in the vast majority of cases right now. Some cases it makes sense. Like if the individual has, for example, another trial that's coming up, you don't want to prejudice that jury, right? So that's why you don't name them. But they are taking it way too far with zero logical explanation as to why. So now we can't tell you who these people are. And I said to somebody the other day, listen, I need to find a way to challenge this because this is not right. And these judges need to stop it. They're being overly influenced by the defense attorneys who don't want these perpetrators named because guess what? They're still living amongst us. And somebody's going to have to challenge this. And I have reached out, in fact, to the to the judiciary in this specific case that came down a couple of days ago. The mother is in contact with me. She wants him to be named by way of an update. And the court is telling me I can't name him. Caller, I think I can't hear you, but hold on. I might have to restart the phone. Hello, good morning. Let me restart the phone. Hold on one second. Yeah, I'm so perturbed by this. And you know, I reached out to this particular judge in this case with a view to appealing the decision. And I'm going to double check my emails because I have not yet received a response in relation to this. Let me just hold on. All right, give me 1 second here. Just restarting the phone. Yeah, man, this is going from bad to worse. Okay. All right, let me see if I can get this caller back on the line. Yeah, man, listen to me. I'm not happy, none at all. This situation has me extremely disturbed, more than I can really fully communicate to you. I still can't hear the phone ringing. Hold on. Hello? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Hello?
Hear me now?
There we go. Yes.
Hi. Morning.
Morning.
When legislators pass a law, that's not interfering with the court. And it needs to be done. And the courts have been getting out of hand in a number of ways. And it's an issue that actually needs to be focused on. But we should do that at a different time. I just wanted to make this point that when prospective candidates come onto your show, it should be raised, because their ability to understand this issue says a lot about whether they should be an MP or not.
Thank you very much.
Take it.
Yes, I mean it is concerning. The judges, and like I said, it's the judges who sit in the vast majority of these cases that are doing this. Let's go ahead and bring Mr. Rolston Anglin on. Good morning, Rolston. How are you?
Sandra, I'm good. Good morning. How are you?
Not too bad, my dear. Where do you stand on, because this is an issue that I've been fighting for over 20 years now and making, I feel like, very little headway. But where do you stand on these sentences? I mean, we saw the court basically give, and this is how it works. You pleed guilty, and Alwick Lindsay said this at his meeting last night, and I support his initiative here, is that for sexual offenses, in particular sexual offenses against children, it needs to be legislated where certain things we do away with. So normally you get 1/3 off for early guilty plea. You get, what they've been doing is all these reductions, like, oh, your case took so long because of prosecutory mishandling in most cases, or the police mishandling it, and all these other things. And you've been on either remand, or you have had your rights, like you had to wear a monitor, or because you've had your rights infringed upon someone, you're going to get another 1/3 reduction or a significant reduction. His suggestion that maybe we need to look at having, for this specific category of individuals, no reduction whatsoever.
Well, Sandra, let me not say I think. I was part of the Legislative Assembly when we implemented mandatory minimum sentences for gun crimes, violent gun crimes. We have reached a stage when it comes to sexual offenses toward children, where the Legislative Assembly, the Parliament, has got to implement mandatory minimum sentencing. It's very, very clear that what results are coming out of the courts does not reflect what the Caymanian community feel is justice. Because what is justice? Justice is the combination of the thought processes of a community and its system of justice involving the police, the prosecution, the defense, and ultimately going to court, and what the result is. And anyone that can look on and say that we feel like there is consistent justice when it comes to sexual offenses toward minors, I think has lost their minds. And so we have to have minimum sentencing. This whole excuse making of not wanting to name hardback adults who perpetrate the most heinous crime that, in my opinion, because there is some fear that, if the victim could be negatively impacted, because if you know the perpetrator, then you might be able to identify the victim, etc. And we're a small community, and those, generally speaking, are valid concerns. However, the courts are open to the public, are they not?
Absolutely. And here's the best part, Rolston. Here's the best part. If you sat there and looked at the cause list, you would know exactly who the perpetrator was.
Right.
And external media. So if a British newspaper saw this article and decided to publish it, this ruling from the court has no bearing on them.
Yeah.
And they could publish it without fear of no repercussions.
Well, you know what they're going to, what they're doing is they're going to start forcing Caymanians and media houses to start opening foreign offices or foreign locations.
That's right.
To publish the stories. Don't they realize the world is flat, digital, with information, the world has been flat for over a decade. But the courts seem to be in a very archaic thought process, and in my opinion, are using and flexing their muscle in a way that does not serve the community in which they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be executing justice on our behalf, because what comes out of a court system should reflect the community that you're a part of, right? And so, where I stand in this is very simple, Sandra. Let's repeat: mandatory minimum sentences. Mandatory minimum sentences is something that parliaments should be very, very careful and cautious around, because technically speaking, a judge should hear the merits and demerits of a case and then be able to sentence based on the case, right? That is what justice is.
And that often makes good sense in law. I mean, that's a good practice.
But we can say through history now, this isn't just one case. This is cases over years and years and years, where it's very, very clear that for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, judges in these Cayman Islands, our Cayman Islands, seem to be very reluctant to impose lengthy sentences for persons who sexually offend minors. And that's unacceptable. That's completely unacceptable, because, you know, none of us know what we've seen and we hear through the victims and persons who are professionals who deal with the victims. It literally ruins a lot of people's lives. They never ever recover. They never recover to be able to have healthy relationships and this sort of thing. And, you know, it's just unacceptable. I think mandatory minimum sentences, judges with gag orders around persons who, if you want to, you can go down to the courthouse, sit in the courtroom, you know, and see who the perpetrator is, and now all of a sudden they can't be named. Blows my mind. That makes absolutely no sense, in my opinion.
Yeah. So Jean says repeat offenders should be named. Repeat offenders of what type of offense? Just in general? Listen, there's in my mind, it doesn't make a difference if you're a repeat offender or not. Let me give you a statistic about sexual offenses in particular. The nature of that offense and the nature of who the perpetrators are and how they operate is, by the time they come to court and are caught and go before the judicial system, they have a whole slew of victims. The average number is 20 victims. Now in Cayman, because of our, protracted population, it might not be 20, but it could be 5 or 10. They have already ruined lives before they're finally caught, right? So let me give you an example of how this works. There's a guy, Salvin, can't remember, Caballero, whatever, just as an example. He was an EMT at our hospital. When we first reported on his case that he had molested, he was in court for alleged molestation. He was eventually found guilty. When we reported on him, I had a adult victim, right, come forward and say what he had done to her when she had gone into the E&A at the hospital, was feeling her up and touching her up. And a lot of people don't report these things. So the very nature of the offense, where it's underreported, means that these people are a significant risk, whether we think that they're a repeat offender or not. Chances are they are a repeat offender. They've just never been caught. The victims haven't come forward before. And in his case, this was a child that he was taken advantage of. Now, the court seems to be, like I said, I don't know, because these are intelligent judges. I'm not questioning their intelligence. The lawyers are intelligent and also very, very conniving, right? So they make this argument, that the victim's identity is at risk. You think that I can't write a story about Salvin and talk about what he did and what he was convicted of and what his sentence is without saying nothing that could link him to victim, good God, please. We have the intellectual capacity to be able to write in that manner. So think about this for a second. He's married to Kim Anion, I believe. He has some kind of status here, obviously, working as EMT. He comes out. You're not able to Google his name, see that he was found guilty, see that he was convicted to XYZ. He goes back out there and gets a job in a tourist field, working around other people's children that are very transient, coming and going. And we've had that happen here before because these guys are smart. They think about how to target victims that will be easy prey, right? You guys might not remember, but there was a 12-year-old some years ago. Her parents came here to stay. They'd been visiting for years, came to stay at a resort in 7 Mile Beach. And the groundskeeper raped that poor child, hoping that, they'll be gone in a couple of days. She's not going to tell anybody. Or by the time she tells someone, she's in another country. And then it's very, very difficult to do anything about it. We've got to address this issue. And I'm disappointed in the approach lately. And it's escalated in the last 6 months where case after case after case, the courts are telling us we cannot name these individuals. And I do not see the logic of it. Oh, you can't name the victim. I mean, my apologies. You can't name the perpetrator because the victim might read the story. So I said, how far reaching is this going to go? Any victim can read stories and be triggered. I have worked with people, even in my industry, working with CMR, who says, Sandy, I can't go to court and cover these stories because I'm a victim and it would trigger me. So I can't do it. Okay, fine. I understand. There's a lot of things that trigger you. Where do we stop? So because a victim, because all victims are vulnerable, children especially, because they might be triggered by reading about an assault. What are they going to tell us next? We can't report on assaults, on sexual assaults, because that triggers people too. It's getting to the stage where I am honestly sick and tired of it. And what options do I have as a reporter? I have to now go to the judge, beg her to reconsider her decision, give her an explanation as to why this makes absolutely no sense in my eyes. We're not going to say anything that's going to identify the victim. We're not going to talk about the connection with him and the victim in the relationship. And in this case, it's not even like it's a family member, right? So why would they think that someone would be able to read that and figure out who the victim is? It's ridiculous. And the victim's mother has reached out to me and she wanted him named. She wanted an update on this. And I'm now having to tell her, oh, I'm sorry, we can't provide this update to you, to the general public, of what this guy has gotten in terms of a jail sentence. And of course, if I go against the court order, then I'm the one who's penalized for it.
Right. And Sandra, where does that sort of censorship end?
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, because we're now doing it, saying that we're going to, judges are now saying, oh, because of a potential impact on a victim of sexual assault, you can't name the person. Then all of a sudden we're going to get all these sorts of, and I'm not going to sit here and say that judges are just going to do things arbitrarily. However, precedent and judicial creep and overreach is something that has happened in many, many countries. And we can't believe and be naive enough to think that in these Cayman Islands that is not going to happen. Because the fact is, how many of us thought that we would have so many of these cases where the sentences amount to nothing more than a slap on the wrist? You've destroyed a child's or young person's life, and yet all you're going to get is a slap on the wrist. So I agree with the assessment you gave a bit earlier. These sorts of cases, the sentence should be the sentence, and it be no discounts. And I believe you have a mandatory minimum sentence. We have to put our foot down as a community and say that we actually are truly 110% against sexual offenses against minors, sexual offenses against women. Plain and simple. When I was in the Legislative Assembly, I think I mentioned this a few shows ago, Sandra, when we had to increase the minimum sentencing around rape because the sentencing was so out of sync with what reality should be when you actually interfere with another person's life in that sort of egregious manner. And so, for me, mandatory minimum sentences, no discounts. Whoever the person is in court is named. The court system is a public system where the members of the public can go and they can see the person in any event. And so this sort of judicial reach that I would be very concerned about it starting to happen in other areas. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
and the sad thing is, unless you are going to court, of course, you don't know that these things are happening. In other media, you know, they're not really making a stink about it or talking about it. You know, they'll just report the story and it is what it is. Let me say this. The practice before CMR came on the scene 8 years ago was not to name these people in the media, you know, at the point of arrest and being charged. I changed that. I'm like, listen, if you're arrested for this offense, I'm going to give you an example, Rolston. Let me tell you something this morning, right? And this is going to be a bit of an exclusivity. I'm further looking into this, but we have someone who's at one of our tertiary education facilities here in Cayman. An individual from overseas contacted me about them. And they said, Sandy, you know, I was doing some research recently. And for some reason, there was always something about this person that they found like a little bit off. And they have access, they're in the States, they have access to, you know, all of these public record and research, you know, sites and stuff like that. And they decided to look this person up. This person actually has, they have been arrested for a sexual offense against a minor. And right now they are working and living, they were charged, they're working and living right here in the Cayman Islands at a tertiary education facility. So that educational facility did not in any way, shape, or form do an adequate or sufficient background check on this person.
Or they ignored major red flags.
20 years ago, it happened, but still.
Right. Listen, Sandra, this is a cause that you have quite rightfully been a serious advocate for. And we just got to stop all the talk, right? We got to stop all the talk. We have to have a sex register. Here's the reality. You do the crime, everything that goes with it comes with it. If you are going to commit, as I said, what is the most egregious crime you can commit against another human being, then you should be named publicly. You should be put on a register, and there needs to be mandatory minimum sentencing. It's that simple, right? There's no need for any long debate. I don't see why there needs to be all this back and forth about debating it. Honestly, I really don't.
Yeah. We got to do better. Voter Voice says, why didn't Rolston push for a sex offenders registry in his 3 terms? That's 12 years of no action on this. And I'm sure it was being said from then what was needed.
And so if you remember, Sandra, one of the first conversations I had with you, and I think at the time, Anthony Eden, don't quote me on this, but Sandra, you will know this a lot better than I did. If I'm remembering correctly, you had approached him about trying to push this forward, and you came to a whole host of us, all of whom agreed that this was supposed to happen, right? And so, to the author, and Sandra, you have seen this in Cayman. Given how our legal infrastructure works, we can move private members, motions, etc. But there has been a lot of resistance, from what I can recall. There has been a lot of resistance in many quarters in the judiciary and in other legal areas of government about actually doing this. And so legislators have gotten a lot of pushback. I'm not trying to make any excuses, but that has been a fact. I think we're in 2025, and for me, it's about today and moving forward. So anyone that wants to look back, then you can blame every legislator who has been there up until this point.
Yes. Let me say this. At one point, the Attorney General actually said that he was against it because he felt like the risk was too great to the victim. And then over the years, he himself has changed his position and said, we should find a way, even if it's just for like internal government use or agencies or whatever. I mean, there has to be a way that we can take the hyper focus off of the victim and put it on the defendant where it rightfully belongs. I see Jean mentioned the fact that if you do a search on, what was the portal, Jean, that you just said? That she said, that's crazy. If you sign up for Experian in the States, it immediately lets you know when a sex offender moves in within a 10-mile radius of your zip code. Other countries have tried different methods. And so we have the benefit, Jamaica introduced a sex offenders registry. We have the benefit now of being able to say, okay, what works, what doesn't work? And we can tweak something for our small island nation that is practical and gives people, and let me be clear, knowing that you have a sex offender next door to you, knowledge is power. I have always said, listen, let's start with the most important thing, which is educating and protecting your children first and foremost, because once that glass is broken, you can never put it back together. They ruin people's lives. They ruin the lives of children and others, right? So get in the front end. We also need adequate protections and resources as it comes to actually mental health and wellness programs for children, specialized treatment for children who have gone through this. Okay, so while they're talking about, if they read a story, how about giving them therapy? How about giving them access to free therapy so that they can, try to work through what they have encountered? Because what we do is we have children in the court system who go through an ordeal like this, and then they're left to just adjust their lives on their own, and they don't have the coping mechanisms to do so. That's why a lot of our children, when you look at the statistics, are suicidal. That's why they're suffering from depression. That's why they're self-harming. So when I sit and I look at what was sent out, and if you were at the Alice Panton symposium, the information was harrowing in terms of what happened, right? And what is happening to victims, how they're being groomed. There was a whole section on grooming that is so critical. Only in recent times have we even made grooming a criminal offense. And we need to understand what grooming looks like, how people do it. So we need to be more vigilant as parents, as advocates, as aunts and uncles, everybody in this community. And we can't do that by trying to protect the defendants. We can't do that by trying to protect the perpetrators.
No. But Sandra, thanks for clarifying that. And you are quite right. There has been a lot of pushback over the decades that this has been talked about. And obviously, I would feel for whoever was in cabinet, especially when you were making that last push, because I recall when you said it, I recall now that was the response that if I'm remembering correctly, that was given at that time. And so obviously, if the chief legal advisor to the cabinet is resisting a bill or a proposed bill, or even a proposed paper that would create a bill, then the governor is going to have certain reservations as well. And so I think it's important for how you pull that veil back a little bit for the public to remember how our democracy actually works, and in some instances doesn't work.
Good morning, caller.
Morning.
Morning.
I just looked it up in the Constitution, and Section 7 of the Constitution says that you have a right to a fair and public trial. Public. So what is the court talking about?
I mean, and it is public, but the courts know, and so do the defendants and the lawyers.
The lawyers.
Yeah, they all know that the vast majority of people do not go, they don't show up to court. So that's where the media plays such a critical role, because we're able to report to you guys what is happening in court. I think we need to get to the stage where courts are available for everybody to join in on a Zoom link for certain types of hearings. If you've already been found guilty and you get to the sentencing hearing phase, everybody should be able to log in and watch that. That should not be hidden.
Well, it's all public anyhow. So what they're trying to do. No, but what they're trying to do you have in legislation being introduced where you're having secret hearings that are not public, and that's a slippery slope. There's a reason why they should be public, and without the publicity, you can't have accountability.
Absolutely.
Anyhow,
yeah. I mean, it's I mean, it's just disturbing, It is something that we need to get a handle on. We have failed in this regard. And as a result of these failures, or children in particular, but even adult victims are, feeling the results of those failures. And we have got to do better. We have created an ideal situation for perpetrators. They hide in open sight.
That's right.
Anonymity. Yes, I see them at the grocery store. I'm going to talk about this case because this case is very, very well known. This would be the Webster case. This was the one case when I returned to Cayman I came back in 96, and this happened, I think, not long after that. And this was the single case that made me go, something is wrong here. This is not how these cases should be handled. And that was the Webster fella who had unfortunately molested his own daughter and impregnated her. And then in an attempt to try to cover that up, gave the girl basically poison, castor oil concoction, to try and abort the child. And that's how it was discovered, because she got so violently sick from that concoction and had to be taken to the hospital. It was discovered that she was pregnant with her own father's child. These are harrowing stories that should not be happening. And there were people around that child, including his own mother, who's supposed to be a nice Christian lady, wearing her skirt all the way down to her ankles, going to church every Sunday, talking about Jesus and the love of God and this and that. And you would have heard your own granddaughter crying when she was being sexually raped and molested by her own father, and you did nothing as a grandmother. And I remember her distinctly writing to the compass, saying how, let he without sin throw the first stone. So she was, even after it came out publicly, she had the audacity and the gall to defend her son. What on earth are we doing in this country? This is beyond egregious. And that child is messed up for life. She's an adult now, and she's still messed up for life. And every time I see that man walking around, because he loves to go grocery shopping on a Saturday, he walks around grocery shopping, don't even have a cart in his hand because he's not really shopping. He just walking around oogling people and staring at young girls. And I swear I want to pick up the biggest mango or melon and pop him in the head, but I don't, right? Every time I go to the farmer's market, I go in Liberties to get a little small lunch, I see him there sitting down. But he knows that I know who he is. And so he always gets up and quickly makes an exit when he sees me coming. That's how perpetrators should feel. They shouldn't feel too comfortable in this country. But unfortunately, we have made them comfortable. And it's the victims who are feeling uncomfortable. It really needs to stop. Rolston, I know that this was not your topic today, and my apologies, but it's an important topic. And I hope you realize that, at the end of the day, we can't discuss this enough. We can't try to find enough solutions for this, because unfortunately, the system is just broken and no one is wanting to address it. People feel uncomfortable talking about it. Listen, we all do. No one really wants to talk about this, but it is a must. It is a requirement.
That's right. That's right, Sandra. I'm going to repeat myself. The next parliament, and it's not just one, right? There's a couple of others that I've started to take note around what sentencing is starting to look like in Cayman, and looking very, very liberal in terms of soft. Let's put it that way, soft. Liberal is not the word, soft. Being way, way too soft on certain types of crimes in Cayman. And I think this is one that is ripe for the legislature to take a look at, introduce mandatory minimums, and ensure that what you're sentenced to is what you serve. Because you have destroyed a person's life. You've destroyed a young person's life. Sandra, as it was reported in this case, apparently they had not even done an updated victim impact assessment.
You can imagine.
Out of fear that having to have this young child describe the events again was going to be even more traumatic on them and cause them more mental harm than it was worth in terms of getting that report to the court. This is real, and it's been swept under the rug way too long.
Yep.
You've mentioned it. There's been too much cloaking around this in this community, and it needs to end. And the legislature has a role to play. And I think the role has to be using a sledgehammer approach, because there are times where you have to come down with a sledgehammer and you take the gavel out of the judge's hands, because they are not. I think it's very, very clear. You look at the average sentencing around these sorts of crimes over the last, let's just say, decade. I think it's very, very clear that the reasonable Caymanian looking on is saying this is not justice.
Yeah.
And so if it's not
part
justice,
of the reason too, right, Rolston, this comes back to having professionals deal with these cases and educate people. Part of the reason why an average person would think, if I get an updated victim impact statement from you, that means then that, you're going to have to relive the events. That's because these people are untrained, right? They're not experts. And this is where the government now needs to hire experts who deal specifically with child sexual abuse victims, because there is a way, a clinical way, to get that statement from those individuals without doing further harm to them. A victim impact statement doesn't just have to come from the victim, I mean, let's think outside the box here. It could come from the parents, who can say that this child is still suffering from nightmares. The child is no longer as social as they used to be, right?
Teachers can give you information. Teachers see them in the classroom.
So to me, this is a failure in the people who are responsible for collecting these types of reports, who they themselves don't understand in a delicate situation like this, how to do their job. They're linear in their thought process. They only understand a square box. There's more than one way to get to a victim impact statement. And there's more than one way to engage the victim. But you see, here's the bottom line, Rolston. If this child was actually receiving professional psychological assistance and counseling for the abuse, that person should have been in a position to provide a victim impact report to the court.
Agreed.
And the fact that that didn't happen tells me the child is not even receiving therapy, which is horrific when you think about it.
Absolutely.
Because if I'm a professional therapist and I'm having sessions with this child on an ongoing and regular basis, I can still, because the child would be opening up to me, who's now a trusted source, who's been talking to the child for years since this happened, right? And I can still say, this child comes in once or twice a week, and she still talks about what happened to her. She's still struggling to understand it. Although she's a couple years older, it is still something that's impacting her relationships.
Absolutely. That is, Sandra, something that needs to be noted and action taken on. So I'm certainly going to take a note of that, as I've told you, and as we launched the manifesto last week. I mean, I think I'm up to about 6 major points that the public has put forward in terms of recommendations. A couple came off the show, and others have come from people scanning the QR code and actually just sending in feedback, and from my door-to-door visits. But this is critical. And we were going to talk about special education needs, and we were going to talk about inclusion. Yes. And so this runs alongside it, in the sense that one of the things that I clearly remember in my time as a minister was around children who had abuse at home, sexual and otherwise, and what impacts they were having in the classroom. And the fact that there simply wasn't enough services being provided. And as I understand, it still isn't today. And that is where we should be spending our next education and child welfare dollars. I would rather see that as opposed to $100 million school on an island, that is the size of most elementary schools in terms of student population, not elementary schools, daycare centers. And also, let me be very, very clear, has a known history in Cayman Brac, Little Cayman, of child sexual abuse, that they're 20 years behind us. Imagine, we're nothing to applaud ourselves about. And the BRAC specifically is 20 years behind us. They openly talk about the abuse that is happening on that island. They know the abusers.
I had friends who moved back to the brat, like, oh, you know, they want a little bit of a laid back, whatever. And they've got young children. They always say that's their primary concern, is that these perpetrators are out there that they grew up with and everybody knows who they are. And they're still out there preying on people's children. So they have to keep an eye on their children. In little old Cayman Brack, where you think anybody should be able to walk around free as a lark and not have any worries.
That's right,
And yet we've had a premier from the BRAC who served in government for 30 years. And she has never, as a woman, as a so-called Christian, as a person who is an educator herself, you know, who has had the education ministry for years, she has never, ever discussed this topic to any sufficient degree that I can recall. Good morning, caller. Hello, caller. All right, that's a WhatsApp call, so I wasn't sure if they were having some issues there, but it's disturbing to say the least. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Morning.
See,
Yes,
I'm on
ma'am.
my birthday vacation.
Oh, is today your birthday?
No, it's Sunday.
Oh, well, happy birthday when it comes.
Thank you. And good morning to you, Rolston.
Mhm.
Good morning.
I am so happy. I didn't catch you from the very beginning,
Mhm.
but I am so happy to hear someone pick this matter up again.
Mhm.
If you would just allow me, a few
Mhm.
years ago, I'm not going to call the name of the candidate.
Mhm.
When they were running, I made it a point to sit
Mhm.
down and have a conversation with them.
Mhm.
And I begged them, I said, please promise me, if you get elected, you are going to address this whole thing of rape and child molestation.
Mhm.
And I explained to them, you know, what this does to a person, to the victims.
Mhm.
And especially the victims, because sometimes the families will sort of grow past it. And if they're not recognizing what is happening to the victim, then, you know, you might as well have just shot them dead. Anyway, and that person promised me that they would. They were successful in their election. And unfortunately, when they were getting everything together to take this stuff to the House, they were not re-elected. So that just died. And as we say, the death of Dillard's dog. Rolston might know that expression. He's from West Bay. Anyway, so I just wanted to say that, Rolston, I'm just so happy to hear you say that you're going to champion this cause. This is too common in Cayman. And I heard Sandra say earlier that they won't let us have a sex registry. I did not realize that had actually been refused. I thought that it just hadn't been carried forward. But we have monsters living amongst us. And what is most unfortunate, some of them wear uniforms that's supposed to be representing trust. So bear that in mind, okay? And I know what I'm talking about without saying any more. This is a cause that is close to my heart. And I would be willing to work with anyone if we could get this done, because that's a life that you have taken. You may not have murdered them, but you might as well have, because that person will never be the same. You have caused them to be inadequate. You have caused them to withdraw. You have caused them to be insufficient in relationships, you know, whether it's professional or social or intimate. That's a life you have taken. And to me, the only fair sentence for that is a mandatory life sentence, because you're not going to change. You're wired that way. So even if they were castrated, they would still find a way to molest a child or a grown person if they could. So the punishment has to fit the crime. If you can sit down there and talk about, oh, let's increase the sentence for a gun. How many guns that they found were actually fired? Let's think about that. Let's think about
far more.
that.
That's right, Miss Brenda. Far more lives are destroyed on a daily basis by this.
That's right.
Than gun violence.
And like I said, and they're walking around
Yes.
as if, you know, they're trustworthy. Sometimes they're not invited in your home. Unfortunately, sometimes they are. Sometimes they're in the schools. Sometimes they're in the workforce. They, that's the way they're wired. Think about Ted Bundy. Just reflect on Ted Bundy for a minute. He couldn't help himself. So, in other words, it's like what they say, feeding. What's it? What's your expression? I forgot something about the bees and the honey and something else.
Oh yes.
But anyway, I'm Rolston. I cannot begin to tell you just how enlightened I am to hear you say this. And I'm going to ask you, please, because I'm a fair person and I don't expect everyone to be able to deliver on everything, but at least pick the most important ones, not to you, but to what the people have asked you, whether they're from West Bay or from East End. We have a lot of needs going on here. People need to stop getting confused about financial satisfaction. These are needs that we need to get put in place and keep our children safer.
Thank you, Miss Brenda.
Have a great day.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
weekend.
And I'm mindful that our other guests are in the back of the studio waiting as well.
Yes.
Rolston, I want to just read a few quick comments that came in. This person says, thank you, Mr. Rolston, for standing up for the rights of children and young people who are suffering abuse and taking a position on the need for stronger sentencing. Thank you to Sandy. You brought a spotlight on this issue. Keep that spotlight and magnifying glass on the issue. Children need to be protected. Yes, Cayman is an ideal environment for perpetrators. The victims are left on their own. Another person says, are their names excluded from the court list now? I guess we won't be able to go to court to listen to the perpetrator. He'll be allowed to hide behind a curtain. Child molesters should have to wear a monitor all of their lives, the same way that victims wear the trauma all of their lives. And one other sort of key area, Rolston, that we need to have some discourse around is that something like 35 to maybe even 45% of victims are actually victimized by other child victims now are victimized by other children. Sometimes they're older, sometimes they're the same age, and sometimes they can even be younger. I know of an instance of a young girl at Clifton Hunter that was sexually assaulted by a child who was a little bit younger than her because the teacher got up, left the two of these kids alone in a room. And he is bigger than her despite being younger, and he was able to sexually assault her. So we need to educate our teachers that you never, under any circumstances, not even for 5 minutes, leave children unattended because anything can happen. When that parent reached out to me, I could feel her pain and how the administration in our ministry and the department was handling it. Their only concern was a cover up. Oh, don't let this get to CMR. Good morning, caller.
Morning again.
Morning, my dear.
Morning from the BRAC.
Yes,
love your
ma'am.
blouse. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Anyways, morning, Rolston.
Good morning.
I've been listening and checking on my West Bay family, and so far you're doing really well, and I must commend you for that. And this is Carrie from the BRAC, by the way. And I want to also say that I strongly felt that a lot of times when you were running in the House, you weren't given the opportunity to really represent well. So I think you might give us, the people of West Bay, that opportunity this time. So I hope that you're successful and you get elected. But I do think my feelings are you need to join the TCCP, but that's your choice. Anyways, I want to say this. With respect to this court matter with this person wearing a monitor for how long? 4 years, because we couldn't get our act together and sort him out for what he did to this child. That is absolutely ludicrous. Everybody involved in this entire matter need to be fired. I don't care who they are. Everyone. Because when this matter got to the court, what would the judge didn't have a choice but to do what they had to do. And I think it's unfair that we direct the court's decisions in these ways, circumventing the systems so that when they arrive in front of a judge, they have no choice but to act in that manner. And that is unfair to the victim of all people. And you're also right. an impact statement should have been taken immediately from that child, or within a few days or a month or a week or whatever, or even from the parents. But we don't, the problem with our country, we're broke, so we hire unprofessionals with fake credentials, and trust me, I find them all day long.
Wait a minute. Let me correct you there, Carrie. We're not broke. We prioritize things in a different way. So building physical structures is more important to us, right? Hiring certain people and giving them all sorts of ridiculous benefits with their package to be able to keep, some foreign labor here is more important to us. It's a matter of priority and how we spend our money. Repaving roads is more important than setting up programs for our children.
Exactly. And there's so many children that's affected by this molestation or sexual assault. And I'm a victim of that here in the BRAC as a young girl going to Sunday school. You take 20 BRAC women, 20 BRAC women, and you ask them, what happened to you? Did you have anyone grope you, anyone sexually molest you, harass you while you were growing up? All 20 is going to say yes. And those in earshot of that is going to come and join and say, me, I too. So, it's been here forever, and it's not been addressed professionally. So many victims out here, so many, and our country has fallen in the gutter when it comes to taking care of that situation.
How many did you say out of the 20 you think would admit to being victims?
All 20 of them.
All 20? I mean, I was going to say probably 18 out of 20, but if you broadened it to touching and inappropriate, even attempts at grooming, I would probably agree with you.
Yep. And like I said, if there are more people listening within earshot of you asking those 20 that question, they're going to join in and say, me too. Because that is how poorly we were dealt with up here in the BRAC as young children. Nobody addressed it. The schools had no one to assist you. You're going to church and your parents are thinking you're in the best quality of hands in church when they're the ones that got you in their hands, fondling you. That's the problem. Anyways, it's a very deep-rooted situation, and we don't have enough professional people to come into this country and unearth it and dig up the roots and kill them.
Yeah.
So thank you for keeping it alive.
Yes,
thank you.
And the other thing I want to say in relation to this, right, Rolston, and this is something now, you I think might get education ministry back if you're successful. One of the things that is critical is we have got to be very, very vigilant and hypersensitive about where we are importing our workers from. Okay. Yeah. And doing background checks on those individuals, because unfortunately, there are places that we import people from who they have a particular cultural perspective on this issue of hiding and keeping things under wraps themselves in their own country, because that's just the norm. So we need to be
Sandra, not only hiding, but what is their social norms?
Yes.
What is customary in their society and what is acceptable versus man? And I don't think we need to say too much about that, because I think those listening would know. So Sandra, here's my takeaways in terms of the points that I've recorded, right? We need mandatory minimum sentencing. We need to have, because I've been typing away, because we got to document. If we're going to make changes, we got to be off. We got to be on the point. We need to get back to a sex register, right? Here's another one, Sandra, in my opinion. Anyone that's in a position of trust, if you're police, you're a counselor or whatever, if you are found guilty of sex crimes, you should receive a double sentence. We need to increase the mental health and counseling to support victims. When it comes to things like victim assessments, you're quite right. Counselors, teachers, the parents. We don't need to re-victimize the child a lot of times. That original statement should be enough, and then having others be able to advocate and say, here's the impact since the event, the person being charged, and now at the sentencing stage.
Let me give you another one that you need to add to the list. When it comes to the court process, right? There is someone in the prosecution's office who's kind of like a victim's advocate. There's a lady there. I mean, her workload is ridiculous. You should have one specific for this type of offense. This person, and there's an actual program in Canada Many years ago, I'd signed up to do it, but life be so busy sometimes I don't get to complete all the training. But basically, you are it's almost like the ad litem program. You are the person assigned to that victim for the process of their court case. And you have a responsibility of going back to the DPP's office. We haven't seen it listed for a month on the cause list. What's going on? So you chase up the DPP. You're like a liaison between the family, the victim, the DPP's office, and the police, right? Now, this person could also work closely with the MASH unit, which is in place. So they would sit in on MASH unit meetings, because remember now MASH is a multi-agency, because we've screwed this up so much that we've had to set up this particular MASH unit. And even with the MASH unit there, look at how we're still screwing up these cases. Yeah. And so that person over the duration of the trial works closely with the victim. They have specific training to work closely with that victim in order to guide them, gain their trust over that time, and offer them support about how the court process works. Because a lot of times you put these children, because a defendant has a right to see his accused. You put these children in a witness box and they have to look at the person who assaulted them for years.
Yeah.
Right? Occasionally they might put them behind a screen. And then you have prosecutors asking them questions. I have seen a young girl, a teenager, where her father claims, right? Of course, he didn't admit to the assault, and a jury of his peers let him walk on the offenses. The young girl said he had raped her several occasions. And his attorney was able to sit there and ask her questions, because he claims that she was upset with him because he wouldn't allow her to go to sleepover because he didn't want his daughter to become a lesbian. Listen to this ridiculousness. And they were able to sit there and question a teenager about whether she likes other girls. So there needs to be a tightening up of a lot of different things, a lot of different elements. But I think that if you had someone who worked closely in the judiciary with the victims, right? Not in the judiciary, but through the judicial process, they're the victim advocate. They're the ad litem person for that victim. They can also prep them about what sort of questions they may ask you. And you just need to stick to the truth, right? And help them to know kind of what to expect, because that is a very traumatic situation for a young person to have to give testimony in court as well. Another caller, and then we're going to wrap up Rolston's segment so we can bring TCCP on. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Another one you can add to the list is, how about we raise the age of consent? Because 16 is not the age of consent. And you got too much hard back 40-something-year-old man just waiting for these little girls to turn 16.
That's right.
And you can't do nothing about it.
That's right.
Because it's consensual.
Yeah. You can't do nothing else as a 16-year-old. You can't sign a contract. Right?
You can't drink alcohol. You can't smoke.
But yet you can consent to a relationship with Big Hard Batman.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much, caller. The funny thing about that question is, years ago, that was one of the chamber questions. I remember this. They had it when they had it here at the church in Savannah area. And I remember John Seymour being so confused. Evidently, he did not know what the term age of consent means. And you can go back. I'm sure the chamber has the archives. This would have been maybe 2009, whenever that election, the closest election to that. He actually said we should lower it. And I was like, what? This is what happens when you select people to run for public office who are not qualified. They're not qualified to pour a glass of milk, much less. Okay. Two more comments. Shanice, thank you so much. Says CMR started this process of bringing awareness to the lack of public awareness on sex offenders. And it's a shame that our government hasn't picked up the baton and carried it further to give us a proper registry and laws that are properly enforced. Rolston is right. Soft is exactly how the legal system is acting. Anthony says Cayman Islands is a very delusional society that believe church is a safe zone. Just sit in court and just listen to person's character references and see who's in church seeking rehabilitation. What a hot mess. The jury needs to be vetted as well, says Jean. One more question for you, Rolston, before we let you go. Someone said to please ask you this, and this is in relation to the video, which I know we were talking about earlier. So this person says, can you ask Rolston where he stands on the behavior that was displayed yesterday by that man against those men on the beach? Not his views on gays, but his views and public disrespect and threats of violence against these men.
Well, we can't have that. I mean, the fact of the matter is, I'm not a lawyer, but to the best of my knowledge, there is perhaps a crime was committed. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that.
I believe so too.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard that's one of the things that was said to me last night. When I discussed this with a friend of mine, just trying to wrap my mind around whether or not, because that's something that I'd heard. Oh well, is this threat legal or illegal? But the fact is, listen, we live in a time, in an age where if we don't understand and accept persons who have differing lifestyles, who are not causing any harm to anyone, that we're going to believe we can behave and do whatever we want. That's just not the way good societies are, modern societies, and it's just not going to be acceptable. But Sandra, I've made note of the additional points that have been raised.
Thank you.
I can tell you that when I first got elected, if I'm remembering correctly, the age of consent at that point was 14.
Somebody else just mentioned that. I was going to read this.
So that the private members motion that I moved, that I was a part of, that increased the sentencing regime around rape. When the caller made that call, I remembered that's one of the things that we did as well at that point, was we said, look, we need to look at this and we need to actually increase it. At the time, that's where it went. But the caller is quite right. If I'm proposing an education leaving age of 18, and 18 is accepted as to when you're an adult and can make legally binding decisions, etc., that's where we are in Cayman and have been for a long, long time. The caller is quite right, or the author is quite right. It needs to be 18. I mean, there's certain things that we didn't need to have any big hemming and hawing and around the bush type of stories.
Very straightforward.
This is straightforward.
Yeah.
These are simple, straightforward points. But Sandra, I know we went on a tangent today.
We're over time with you. And somebody said, to your point, did you know that years ago the age of consent was 14? 14 question mark, triple exclamation point. That's right. If memory serves me correctly, the MLA, Miss Daphne Orrit, pushed for raising the age of consent. So big shout out to Miss Daphne.
Miss Daphne, if I'm remembering correctly, in the 80s, got it raised from 12 to 14. I'm not 100% sure. I can tell you she moved the private members motion that got it increased. And I'm 99% sure it went from 12 to 14 at that point. We then got it in the 2004 or 5 legislative class to 14 to 16. And we have to get it to 18. There's just no debate. Apologies to your next guest. And next week, Sandra, we'll be back on to discuss education and additional and special education needs and full inclusion.
Thank you so much, Rolston. I mean, I will say this, that you have done your homework. Someone said to me last night, they're like, oh, can I come on your show and get the treatment that Rolston gets? I said, if you come on the show and perform like Rolston, you'll get the treatment that he gets. I mean, Rolston isn't getting any special treatment here, folks. He comes prepared. He's got a manifesto. He comes with his notes. He's answering your questions. He's giving his feedback. And I had to chuckle when they said that to me. I said, wait a minute. This is not a same group that claiming they won't come on the show, because when Rolston first came on, I rolled my eyes at him and gave him a hard time. You show up. If you want to be a representative of the people, you show up, you feel the tough questions, you give your feedback, you take your notes, you adjust your position if need be. We're not asking for someone who has all of the answers here, right? We're asking for someone who can represent us, the people, with some basic skill sets, who understands what our needs are. And if they don't understand what our needs are, they're listening. And when they listen, they do what Rolston has done today. Write down some notes, take some recommendations. So that if he's elected and he becomes part of cabinet, he goes in there and pushes for these initiatives as a priority, because they are a priority for the people of the Cayman Islands. Good morning, caller. Good
morning, Sandy, and good morning, Rolston.
Good morning.
I'm glad that you're on the air again. When you notice I say when, not if. When you are elected, what is your take? What are you going to do with the abuse that is going on with NAU? I have never in my life seen money being handed out to Tom, Dick, and Harry, and for those that definitely need it. There's a gentleman, he's Randman Christian's son. I just came back from talking with him. He wasn't complaining about anything. So I asked him because his back is giving him trouble. He had a major operation. He had put steel in his back, and the man is painting his chain link fence. He said, Dexter, I want to work, but NAU will tell me I'm not eligible for them to help him. His wife is a breast cancer survivor. And when I see that, it makes me so emotional. When there's other people that can't wait to get their money to hit the bars, this guy, it's a family man, well respected. His name is Danson Christian.
I know who you're talking about, Mr. Dexter.
Yes. Yeah, maybe we need to mention his name. But,
I know who you're speaking about, Mr. Dexter. And Mr. Dexter, to be very honest, look, the Department of Financial Assistance, which is the new name, we have to have develop a very clear work-fair policy in this country where we are transitioning people from unemployment to work, to ensuring that they're taking up gainful employment in this country. The other thing that we have to do, and you're 100% right, and he's on top of the list, because I spoke to him as well, and there's a number of Caymanians in our society like this, where they've been injured or they have certain degenerative conditions in their bodies that they can't help and have had surgery. But there are certain positions that we're bringing non-nationals in, and here's the point that's a real clincher, some of them to work in government agencies, either through subbing it out to private contractors or otherwise, that people like him could take up those posts, right? And we have to look at that very carefully, because a lot of people like him, they would much rather have a job that they can then accommodate given their physical limitations at this point, which then takes one more person off NAU and takes one person out of the civil service.
And Rolston, that is what he told me.
Well, leave me there, Mr. Dexter. We want to try to get our other guests on.
Okay.
We appreciate the question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rolston. And when is your next meeting?
Saturday, the next meeting. Thanks for asking, Mr. Dexter. Tomorrow night, March the 1st, we're at 6 Aruna Power Lane. That's just off Power Road. So this is the Power Road area meeting. It's at the residence of Timmy and Diane Hydes, 6 Aruna Lane. Once you come down Power Road, there'll be signage at the top of the road and signage right at the sign at the yard for that area meeting. And so I'm inviting one and all to come out.
Thank you, Mr. Dexter.
Okay, and if I come, I'll be treated special. I want lobster and ribeye steaks.
I know a good restaurant where you can get it from.
I know.
All right, Anthony.
All right, then.
Thank you, my dear.
Okay.
Anthony says, I like Raleigh's campaign strategy. He's campaigning in a strong point, education. He's not bouncing around trying to answer or campaign all over the place on other national issues. Well, he'll address those. They're in his manifesto, but we know that he can bring to the country what he can bring to the country or the government when and if he's successful. Some of these candidates can't be a bagger, much less hold a ministerial manager position. And Magdalene says 100% there, agreeing with that. Miss Blondie, good morning to you. So good to see you last weekend in West Bay. I don't get to West Bay often, but when I do, I love connecting with people I haven't seen in a while. She says, we should all thank Ms. Daphne Orritt for her contributions, especially in regards to such a brave and meaningful motion she was successful in. Thank you, Ms. Daphne. And big shout out to Ms. Daphne, because I had the pleasure of seeing her at the Alex Panton Foundation Symposium. And we were talking about some of these very same issues. And you know what she said to me? Rolston, close your ears now, because I know this is your cousin. But she said to me that at the time, one of the people, because she was talking about this motion, and she said at the time, one of the people, or the only person in the LA that she actually got resistance from was none other than McKeeva Bush himself, way back in the day. And you know what McKeeva said? McKeeva said, Miss Daphne, what are you going around doing? Trying to make all them people think that we West Bay is a bunch of child molesters or what? That was his concern. And McKeeva, all I can tell you, if the cap fit, wear it. Rolston, on that note, sir, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Have a great weekend, Sandra, to you and your listeners. I saw a comment come up. I'm going to be very, very careful about what shirts I wear going forward.
I was just about to say. I
think I need to wear a white shirt from now on because my shirts are not.
I love the color. Miss Brenda said, Rolston, forgot to ask, is your blue shirt indicative of any affiliation? Wear whatever color you want, honey child. We're not getting into no foolishness with colors in this country. But I must say, this color looks particularly good on you. So, you know, maybe it's a sign from the universe kind of pushing you in the right direction, honey child. Rolston, have a wonderful weekend.
Have a wonderful weekend and all the best to your guests.
Yes, my dear. All right. Yes, that's a beautiful color. I love it. That aqua. It's like the ocean, you know, that's one of the beautiful colors of the ocean. All right, people. Up next, we have the TCCP. We're a little bit late with them, but we're going to just have them jump on. They have a new candidate announcement. You guys might have seen it yesterday. None other than Mr. Anthony Ramon. So this is his first appearance on the Cold Hard Truth. So let's bring in Mr. Andre Ebanks first, who is obviously the leader of the TCCP. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, and mic test. Sandra, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound wonderful to me. Can everybody hear him okay? I know sometimes radio listeners kind of struggle a little bit, but you sounding good to me. So
good morning to you. Good morning to the listening public in Cayman.
Yes.
And all of the Caymanians overseas.
Nice, beautiful. Let's bring in Mr. Ramon. Anthony Ramon. Good morning, sir. How are you? Just unmute yourself for me. There you go.
Yes, good morning, Sandra. Good morning to Cayman. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. So, Auntie, as you're affectionately called by so many people already, Risa's like, yes, congrats to Auntie. Lots of people happy to see you join the race. But of course, for those people who may not even know who you are, because, you know, we have a very diverse Caymanian population now, why don't we have some introductions into who your fa, who your mama and papi is, and, you know, tell us a little bit about where you hail from.
Just before he steps in, let me tee him up.
All right.
And tee up how excited, not just as party leader, the entire team is to bring to the TCCP table Mr. Anthony "Auntie" Ramon. He brings intelligence, he brings grace, he brings thoughtfulness, and he brings a deep, rich understanding of town that he feels right at home. From the moment that we began talking, I had an incredible feeling. And when brought to the wider team, they shared an incredible feeling that this just fit. And we are thankful and prayerful of his membership to the candidate team. And we wish him all the very best as we take the party from strength to strength. With that, Anthony, answer all of Sandra's questions of who you're for, what you want to do for this country.
Yes.
And what you want to do for the good people of Georgetown Central.
Yes. All right. Tell us.
Mr. Banks, thank you for those kind words, Sandra.
Andre.
Yes, first and foremost, I'm from Georgetown Central. Central, deep down in Central, as we call it.
Yes.
As the back end of Martin Square, Scranton, up in the east, all of those areas. That is where my navel string is, in Francis Yard, Miss Francis Yard.
Yes.
I'm the youngest son of Jean Ramon, as you know. Many may know my brothers, Paul, Lee, Barra, Kim, Lloyd, all of us. And for me, Georgetown Central is a very unique constituency. When I say that, it's well diverse in terms of one spectrum to the next. You've got now a wider residential area. If you're looking from tropical gardens down in Central itself, you know, where priorities may be different for others. But in regards to me, I've came out through the public education system, school. That being said, I went to Georgetown Primary, the middle school at the time, and the Cayman Islands High School, which I guess you will know as John Gray High School. So that's my basic education. Secondary, I was fortunate or had the ability to earn a full athletic scholarship from Syracuse University, New York, which is a top university in New York.
Sorry, did you say Syracuse?
Yes, Syracuse.
Wow. Wow.
So, and I know a few people from Cayman actually went on there, and I think Mr. Roy Barton, I think, may have done his master's there at Syracuse University in some other studies. So I have a well-grounded, I would say, educational background in terms of education, where I attained my bachelor's in economics and finance at that time. On my return to back on island, which I know I was encouraged to stay on overseas at the time, but again, separate and apart from being homesick, being really young at that point in time, it was also an opportunity to come get myself rooted back into the country. So I basically got involved or started my employment with the Bank of Battlefield in the trust department, capital markets at the time. Went on to the Cayman National Cultural Foundation as one of the booming, I would say, cultural festival, K-Fest at the time, where I was the coordinator for that event for many years. I went on to work with the Rex Ebanks, start the King Sports Center at the time, which was another major project, as you know, has flourished over the years in time to come. And thereafter, I've been working at the Cayman Islands Monetary Authority for the last, I would say, basically 20 years, where I've gained a lot of professional insight on the financial services from a regulatory perspective. And so that has been my rooted background. I've always been involved with the community, not only through sports, but also in the grassroots of the community, helping persons, and that primarily too, also through Georgetown Sports Club and Georgetown Heritage and Paris Week Committee. So, and not only from an organizational perspective, but also being involved with communicating on a daily basis, encouraging persons, being positive at all times, and also trying to maintain those Cayman traditional values, you know, in just general conversation. And sometimes we lose those things along the way. I've also been involved with the National Gallery, one of the founding member of Native Sons. So somewhat of an artist and writer. I started I'm not sure if you may have remembered, Local Rhythm was a newspaper similar somehow to your radio station in terms of Mile Road, but in terms of connecting the local community, was in pulse, bringing people together, carrying on traditional concerns, values, and principles. So that was something that I started again along with Mr. Rex Ebanks. And so I've always been involved one way, shape, or form with the community on a personal level and professional level.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for those introductory comments. And we see already some comments coming in from our listeners. So Cayman Brack, the best silence, says, love you, Anthony. You got this, honey. Cheering for you up here in the Brack. We all love you. Thanks for declaring. Miss Iva says, congrats to my loving classmate, 1987. Miss Brenda says, Sandra, we all know Auntie. He's Mama Jean's son, a son of the Central Soil. Aaliyah says, hashtag Auntie for GTC. Miss Brenda goes on to say, that's your stomping ground. Alex's question, I don't think is directly where we are right now, but Terry Ann says he's a solid gentleman and an authentic Georgetowner who will improve sporting opportunities. Cayman Brack says, awesome human being. He will be awesome, awesome representative, one we can all trust. Syracuse, says Jean. She says, go Knicks. And she says, so beautifully well-rounded. Cayman Brack says, TCCP rocks. They are on CMR, and that means a great deal to the constituents knowing them. Thus, pretty please. What did she say? Thus, pretty please. Oh, me so much. Good people and the best candidates. Miss Joy Sand says, Miss Jean raised Anthony to be the man that he is, trustworthy. So lots of comments coming in, supportive comments. Someone says that you're so very humble and that you're an athlete, an artist, a professional, and a community leader. I was really, another person also said, oh, such a humble person, sorry. I'm also very, very interested that you have this artistic talent as well. I mean, I think it's such an interesting combination to be artistic on the one hand, and then, you know, an economist and studying an economy on the other hand. And I think it demonstrates to our young people, a lot of our young people have artistic flairs, but you can kind of have that dual element to you, you know, like maybe you studied economy and that to make sure you could work in Cayman and had a steady job, but you were still able to get involved in your community and having, you know, working with NC and oh gosh, what's the acronyms again? CNCF, sorry, and other organizations like that. Gabby has a question for you. She says, what are his reasons for deciding to run? So why are you here is what we want to know.
Well, very good question. For me, I mean, I've always, like I said, initially when I came back from university, I've always had that interest in not only politics, but our people. That was first and foremost, our people. And this is the primary reason why I'm here today. You know, I know I had to make a very serious sacrifice, deliberation, and consideration of what I want to do. But I know, again, where my passion and where my heart lies. And that is the people of Georgetown Central and the wider people of this country. As you would see, and when you look around in terms of our economy and Cayman on a whole, it's flourishing. We can say we have a strong, stable economy. But when I listen to our people and seeing it and experiencing, saying, well, we are struggling. We've been crying out far too long. We're struggling. So where are we in this struggle? Where are you in this struggle? Mm-hmm. You know, and we always ask, well, we have the $1 million question, which is now the $1 billion question. Who are we developing for? Mm-hmm. We say for the people, but why are people we are left behind? So for me, it's about bringing our people together, empowering our people, and moving them forward. And we have to move forward together. I mean, yes, we might be left behind at this point in time as a place time for God is the place now for getting its people. And we have to get back on track. We also have to be in the driver's seat, whether if it's as community leaders, politicians, government, or whatever it is. We have to be in the driver's seat, be in control of our destiny. That is far more important. Now, how we go about that, we all have to come together. We all may have our different solutions, whatever. We have to move it forward. So it's, for me, again, empowering our people, looking at the different aspects of our communities, challenges. Your priority might be different from my priority. Your challenge might be different from mine. But on a whole, we talk about collective responsibility, putting perspectives in place in terms of what is the priority? How can we now find solutions where we've solved 5 of those priorities And again, it's physical responsibilities in terms of how do we spend our money. Money is not just printed. It have to be earned, and have to be justified, and have to be reasonable and just at the end of the day. And that also comes to having to make well-informed decisions. So we just can't necessarily just pick up and run and say, well, I want to do this today because I heard that from Tom John, and that's his struggle. So when we have to analyze data or information and saying, well, is it worth it? Is this the right timing to do this? What are the main priorities? Yes, we as individual leaders have to look out for the people of our individual constituencies. Yes, that is vital also too, but also keep that in the wider scope of things. So my reason coming back to that for running is to make a difference, to make sure our people are well-rounded, represented, and to serve and to empower. So we have to move together.
Wow. Proud of you, says Michael Wilkes. Miss Joy Sand says, that's right, Auntie. Vida says, go Auntie, represent. Michael says, Andre Ebanks for Premier. Miss Brenda says, you're so right. The country and the previous administrations have forgotten its people. Cayman Bratt says, Anthony, you don't have to say another word. You already won the election. I'm calling it. Lord have mercy. Joy Sand says, please give that man a kaboom. Well, lots of people are excited to see you in the race. I must say that when I heard your name being floating around, I was like, which Ramon is he again? You and your brothers do look a lot alike. So I had to make sure that I had the right Ramon. A lot of people, Anthony, are they're surprised that you're walking away from your professional life. You're working at SEMA, you said, for about 20 years, financial services. That's a good job. What division at SEMA were you actually in?
I was in an investment supervision division.
Investment supervision, yeah. So, fantastic job. You have great experience. I'm sure if you wanted to go into private sector, there would have been a lot of people that would have been snapping you up. But here you are willing to, put yourself at some degree of risk and put yourself out there. What made you decide? So now we know why you run. And I know that you would have undoubtedly had options and maybe other people wanted to talk to you. You could have gone the independent route. Why did you decide to join up with TCCP?
Well, that's probably not $1 million question. I guess everybody have their speculations. That's for one, or basically saying, well, why not go with this other group versus that group in individual? And there's been a lot of direction and things floating around, independence versus a team versus one versus that. I mean, for me, again, it comes back, unfortunately, that we've been dividing our people, divide and conquer. And going back to the original point to say, well, you divide and conquer, but we're not bringing our people together, whether it was previous administration or individual politician. And I mean, I've spoken to various people in terms of past administrators and individual community leaders. And yes, there was a lot of different things to contemplate. But again, speaking to Andre and knowing where they coming from, where they want to go to, I saw myself also best aligning with that. And it was also in the same interest, direction, and focus of bringing our people together, empowering our people. So that was one of my primary reasons. So in going with TCCP.
And if I could chime in there, Sandra.
Absolutely.
In a very, very real sense, the way that we connected was organic. Everyone would have, through this cycle, who are inclined to follow politics, would have heard all sorts of names in the mix. This wasn't for us hunting and trying to clamp down on a particular candidate. A mutual friend of ours between us, I think, talked to him and said, have you considered this group? And then called me and said, have you considered this person? My question, Sandra, was exactly your question just now. Wait a minute. He has a big post at SEMA. Why would he leave that? So I said, fine, open to the meeting. Now, I knew immediately before the meeting started that he was a person that had a good mind and was rational. Because in my former role in both Appleby and Walker's, when I was an investment funds lawyer, I filed tons of documents with Anthony. And he was a tough regulator, but he was a fair regulator, never cut me any slack, but always was willing to reason through a set of circumstances for the overall good of the country. So I knew he was a sound, intelligent, and balanced mind. But my question when we first sat down is, why would you want to leave such a prime post? And exactly the reason that he just gave of putting all of our people first, having that social equilibrium between finance and social development to uplift our people with shared prosperity and shared values. We had a meeting of the minds, and right there, I know I certainly was hooked, and I could see in his face that he was hooked to say, okay, let's hook up, let's do something together. So he had to have his own journey to process with his family, immediate family, wider family, his employer. But at the end of the day, I'll never forget that first meeting of the minds.
All right, caller, you got a lot of background noise, so let me go ahead and bring you in so you can make your comments or questions.
Is it me?
Yes, ma'am, that's you making all that noise, honey Jam.
Like a mouse trying to be quiet.
Oh no, I hear all kind of scratching and stuff. I'm like, what is Miss Joyce Ann doing?
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure choose to be with TCCP because Mr. Andre stands for quality and not just quantity. He's not just dragging any number to make up a number. That's why they're choosing carefully. And Anthony couldn't be a better choice. Oh my gosh. I'm just as excited as if I vote in Central, you know? Good choice, good people. And not because I'm on that team, it's the truth. It's because I truly believe that the team of those, look back at the background. You don't see all of this stuff that's been with a lot of candidates following them behind, right? Nobody's perfect, but they're so close to being much better than everybody else. And this is what we need to change. No, 4 years down the road, if they don't, I would be one to stroke it. No, for them. But I truly believe, because I am not biased, that Mr. Andre and the whole team, Sabrina, even Mr. Wayne, I had to say, they curse Wayne, but in all of my years, right? I have never seen nobody that takes somebody out of the position that you're picking, one of those out of the position, when he thought that it was not what the country should be guided by, right? The rest of them talked, but he actually did the work. And we have to look and see these things and appreciate these things. If somebody been making a small mistake, the bigger ones, you know, because we're human. Sometimes we're going to make mistakes. And your mistake, you might not understand. It's not a mistake for me. It's what I know and understand you cannot see, right? And once it's not hurting, like you said this morning with the guys, I'm not into that kind of life. But I, as a Christian, cannot hate people with that life. I can't cuss nobody like that. I can't carry on with nobody. What kind of person am I if I do that? Then I'm no better than anybody else. So we have to leave hate behind. I hate no group at all, but I think TCCP is where it's at for this election. And Anthony is a great choice. He come from there. He's rooted in that community. He knows about it. You know, he went through what those there is going through still. So he is one that would understand how to guide his people. Great choice came out.
Thank you, Mel.
Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Welcome.
that.
Welcome.
Yes, ma'am. So Miss Debbie says, I'm very impressed with Anthony. Letitia says, yeah, super proud of you, Auntie. And Joyce Ann again sharing on social, and Andre is looking for the best and he's doing a good job. Miss Claudia says, why so often we hear negative comments about our young people but it's so, as a Caymanian, I'm proud to see so many of these young professionals, such as these we're listening today, including the last guest. Let's be there for one another and stop pulling them down. Wishing both of these young men every success. God bless. Miss Claudia Rolston, not as young as you think now. You know, he getting up there in age. He's got adult children, so yes, he's mature now. Janet Lawrence joining us from Tampa. Good morning, Miss Janet. So good to see you. You're always in our thoughts. She said, a solid son of the soil that GTC and the Cayman Islands will be lucky to have as a representative. Best of luck, Anthony. Good morning to Miss Sue McLaughlin watching. And she is watching, folks, with another 600 and at least 8 people. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Morning again from the BRAC.
Yes.
I had to call. I didn't know it was him you were bringing on, but
okay.
I just had to call and let him know this is so awesome. There has to be some purpose to this because his schoolmate is my brother, Lonnie Tibbetts, and the two of them were really close as schoolmates. And now they're both declared to run in this election. Auntie, you have the full support of my page up here in the BRAC, and I'm pushing you, and I know you're gonna win this. I'm declaring you the winner. You don't even have to say nothing else, okay? You're a wholesome human being, and you are who we want. We've been wanting you to come out for a long time, but God knows the right time. So this is the right time. So God bless your candidacy, bless your win, and all the power to you in the TCCP.
Yes,
Take care of yourself.
Thank
all right,
you.
my dear.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna give Dean Ramon some credits. Is Dean Ramon family to you?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, he said something, and another young lady reminded me of it last night. He said something to me, a conversation I was having with him earlier in the week, and he said, "A blessing received too early is a curse." And so, all in good timing, folks. So, looks like Auntie, your timing is now. So, Lee says Mr. Bryan definitely has some competition.
Yes.
That's all I can say to that. All right. Watching from Rock Round, Texas. That is our good friend there and fellow Caymanian. Mr. Parson, how are you? I see you on Instagram. Beautiful crowd here on Instagram this morning as well. 9362626. It is past 9:30. Can we go into a little bit of overtime, gentlemen?
Sure.
All right. Wonderful. So I know our radio listeners are gone, but normally they know to jump on to the social media feeds, and we've got well over 600 people, so we're doing good. If you have any questions or comments for TCCP, Mr. Andre is here, as well as his newest person, Mr. Anthony Ramon. Now, Andre, we know that Monday is nomination day. Wow, this is it. Will we expect anybody else to be onboarded between now and nomination day?
Just as the Lord has put Auntie and the TCCP together. We'll see what will unfold over the weekend. But a couple of the callers and commenters have put it correctly. It's not just about making up numbers. It's about talking with people who fit within our ideal of putting our people first, of regaining that social balance and regaining shared prosperity. If that comes along, then the answer to your question may come forward by Monday, 3 p.m., I think is the deadline. Not 5 p.m. I'm giving a shout out to all. You show up at 4, you're not in the race.
Yes.
Can come with all of your documents and everything that's required by the elections office under the act. And then who knows? It doesn't just stop at nomination day. As you begin to be able to see how the race unfolds and people's manifestos and positions, there could be other alignments.
Nice. All right. This person said WBW, that's West Bay West, is begging for a TCCP candidate. Who's in West Bay West at the moment? Where's West Bay West?
That would be the current person for, or member for West Bay West would be W. McKeever Bush. And I believe his current challenger is Miss Julie Hunter from the CINP.
Oh, Lord. What a hot mess there. Yes. Okay. Very good. 9362626. Phone lines open for your questions or comments for the leader of the TCCP, or candidate number 10 for them, which is Mr. Anthony Ramoon, affectionately known as Auntie. Marshall says, I'm all the way in North Carolina, but I'm wishing Auntie all the best for the upcoming election. I know when elected, he will represent Central well. Auntie, do you still live in Central, or where do you live?
I currently moved out of Central in itself,
Okay.
but I'm there every day, as you know. My roots are there. My mother is there. And I mean, it is one thing when I look at it in terms of, like I say, it's in Central itself, it's a shrinking residential area compared to the wider, I would say, Georgetown Central. That's like Tropical Gardens. So, but for me also, we still have to look out for the quality of life for those persons that may not want to move out or cannot move out, and enhance that also too. So, whereas as you know, town is expanding, there is encroachment of development. Whether we are in control, can control or not, there will always be those individuals that want or may live out the rest of their lives in that area. And again, that goes back to the quality of our elderly. And then listening to some of your earlier callers, and also when canvassing the area, elderly are unfortunately hurting. We have to give them that dignity in their older years. I would say golden years. Sometimes speaking to some elders, I mean, it's very enriching to speak with their elderly. And I mean, that's something I've always did all my life, to say, well, they're not sure what's golden about these years. You know, I mean, that goes with the aches and pains, but also the accessibility of getting healthcare service. And I mean, sometimes that may have to come to them because they are certain individuals. So those are the things. And some of these are easy to fix, but we have to pay attention. We have to deal with it. And town, for one, like I said, I've always been left behind. There's nothing specific for town itself. It's mostly on a national level. But when you look compared to other districts, you know, they might have their, well, not to say too much, they have their individual facilities. But again, this is something about full-time representation, strong leadership that will bring an uplift for people. And it's not about just financial. Yes, we're all in a financial struggle, challenges. But again, it goes back to quality of life. Feeling comfortable where you are, whether it's the safety and the neighborhoods, all of those things have to be. So it's a well-rounded perspective we have to look at and address those issues.
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct. And if I can also add, as a listening public can probably see, and those who know Auntie, he's a very humble person.
Yes.
Soft-spoken like myself. So when he had his first meet and greet, and that was Monday gone, and I came along, I was so impressed because we hadn't spoken yet as to what would go into his speech, because he didn't do his full onboarding to TCCP until after that. And to hear him roar in the microphone, I was like, my goodness. And he hit all of the points: taking care of Central, elderly, workforce development, education, cost of living. And I was like, my goodness, who's this guy? But he hit all the points and did spectacularly and had a good showing and a good following. And as he is in the central heart of Georgetown, I'm sure he will continue to make his way up now that his candidacy is launched and up and running, get to Crew Road and other areas. Couple of his family members and friends said, Andre, you from West Bay, you going to go in those areas with him? You know I'm going to be there, right there with him, to make the case, to be, along with his infectious smile, to say this is how we are going to move this country forward. I'm very, very excited for his candidacy.
Wow. Nice. Another comment that has come in says, I love the fact that he has an economics background. That is what is missing in our candidates. Central residents are also suffering from gentrification that leads to displacement of people, especially lower income homes and seniors, which is what you were just speaking about there. So someone says, Georgetown West. Who's in Georgetown West again?
Well, the current member is David White for the House prorogues tomorrow.
Okay. Do you guys have anyone in Georgetown West? No.
Not at the moment. No.
Okay. So this person says, Sandy, Georgetown West needs a good candidate. The one so far unsuitable. I'm running Blitz at the moment. That's how desperate it is. Oh, Blitz, her dog. I keep forgetting who Blitz is. I'm like, who the hell is Blitz? Oh. Yes. This person says, I've known him since I first came to the island. Lovely guy, so humble. So the one word, Anthony, that people repeatedly using to describe you is that you're so humble. And that's an important trait in people, especially leaders, because one of the things there's kind of like this conundrum with leaders, right? It's like, did the egg come first or the chicken come first? But a lot of leaders tend to be very, very arrogant individuals, narcissistic tendencies, and so on. So, in my mind, I always think, are there certain professions that attract narcissists and arrogant people, or do they become narcissists and arrogant people once they get into the position? And so the fact that so many people say to you, or saying to me on the platform this morning, that you are so humble, Andre, I want to put a question to you about this. What are some of the character traits that you're looking for? So on the show a couple of weeks ago, we went through a whole list of things which we're going to revisit throughout the campaign that we want in our representatives. What stood out in terms of not his qualifications, well qualified, not his work experience, but Auntie, the man, the person? What stood out for you as important traits that you thought, right, he would fit in so well with TCCP? He's going to be a team player. He's going to add value to the organization. Tell us.
Sorry, Sandra, not to interject before Ms. Sandra responds to that. For me, going back about being humble, for me, that comes from the fundamental of my family, my mother, in terms of, as you all may have heard, say manners of respect will take you further than where money will take you.
True.
So, and no matter who or what, you always respect a person, individual. You would not even say spit on a dog. That's about that respect. And those are some of the fundamental values as Caymanians and people in the back. Well, when I say in the back, central.
Yes.
But those are the things, and those are some of the things that we have to bring back. Despite our challenges, our struggles, or life pressures and stresses, those are some of the things that we as Caymanians have to bring forward. So I'll just leave that there. And also God first. Sorry, Mr. Andre.
No, I think it's a good intervention on your part, Auntie. I'll just tell you as it unfolded chronologically, Sandra, to answer your question. After, as I said moments ago, a mutual friend put us together. As we sat down to speak, I was already convinced about his qualifications because I already knew that. Like I said, we already had interactions, some very, very strong interactions when I was a private sector funds lawyer and he was a regulator. So I was already convinced of all that. What I wanted to know is how he was as a person and why he would leave. What came across to me is that we were bonded by faith, first of all. We were bonded by the love of people. He could see, just like me, because he's in the country's primary regulator for the financial services industry. So he knows how well that is doing. But he could see, like me, that there's another part of the picture that needs to be balanced. There's another part of the picture that needs help. There's another part of the picture where our people need to be put first. So once we were aligned on faith, on values, and then when we were aligned on commitment, I thought this person is meant for TCCP. In addition to that, let's be real with the public. He also brings balance. We have some fiery types like Ozzy. You have some quieter types like Miss Heather. And to see him interact with the team, he sits right in that sort of perfect complement to help anchor the team between those with very, very strong vocal views, and those who may be on the quieter side, to draw those out who may be quieter to contribute to the conversation, and to then have those balanced who maybe have a stronger personality. He's able to interject in this very humble manner. And as we come together, we thought, okay, this completes 10 in order to form the government. And I, in fact, remember when you first sat down, when you brought you into the entire team, Auntie, we prayed.
Yes.
I made a joke that had been a long time since primary school, but I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. With that, with a strong team that is well balanced, with a commitment for our people, I thought this just feels right as a puzzle piece to put into TCCP.
All right. Thank you so much. Someone's asking, they said, ask him, did he have any talks with PPM to run with them first? So they're wanting to know what was happening behind the scenes.
Well, I guess I can speak to that. I mean, it was just general conversations. And like I said, when looking at myself, considering actually taking that leap in terms of running for politics, like I said initially, I've always had an interest in politics. I did do my due diligence, have those general discussions, and I mean, things went in the different directions, and everything fall in place how it's supposed to fall in place, I guess, to put it that way.
All right, caller time.
And as a regulator, I'd expect nothing less for him to do due diligence.
All right, caller, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Morning. Just a question for Mr. Anthony. As a person that has family in the central area, I know that he's on the the Central Scranton Community Committee. So I know that he already have an idea of how the park is going to be situated. But I want to know if he have any ideas in mind if he's elected. If he have any idea to enhance the park more, like to have like an area where like the community members can come in, help expose like to our culture for cooking, because a lot of community members in there are cooks, and everybody's getting older, and not a lot of young people know how to cook. So I want to know if he have any idea of doing that in the future if he's elected.
Well, not to go into too much details, but to put it out there, when that park was, I was one of the pioneers and visionary for the park, along with Mr. Rex Emax, and that was over 30 years ago. And over time, the community have come together and evolved. But to your question, which is a very good question, and when we wrote, it was pretty much a spearhead with other members of the community committee at the time. It was for me, and I will use these words, to recycle our people. That being said, our elderly, getting our elderly involved in this continuation of tradition, values. And you're rightfully right. I mean, the part of our business plan was to have those stalls educational, not only to educate in Korean's tradition, whether it's culinary, but also to give the people, as you know, we have great chefs in Central, so basically you would have stalls where everyone, well, I wouldn't say everyone, but there would be criteria and standards. And the prominent people of that area would have that opportunity to come and sell food. You have those stalls and basically to sell food. So it was also a business opportunity for them and to utilize the people of that. The whole purpose behind the park initially was, again, for the people, by the people. Because, I mean, far too long we have seen things constructed and by others, but the people did not feel the value, so they do not partake in it and stuff like that. But if you have something, your blood and sweat in something, you will make sure that it continues and through. So yes, there are plans, would be my plans, and not to undermine anyone, but there are plans to always utilize our people. This is one of the things that we're talking about, empowering our people and bringing them forward.
Okay, caller.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks very much. People asking Mr. Andre here about Georgetown North. Someone in the comment section, let me just see who that was, that said that they would love to see a TCCP option in Georgetown North because they don't see anyone there. Someone in the comment section, let me just see who that turn the radio down, honey child. They'd love to see a TCCP. All right, so just remember, folks, you got to turn the radio down when you call in.
Sandra, I was asked about that. I spoke at a regulatory seminar yesterday for the firm Morant, and there were a number of financial services persons there who did comment. They had already seen the news. By then, the news had broken about Auntie, and they liked his regulatory background. And I did get a few Georgetown North saying, "Can you bring a TCCP candidate there?" I gave them the same answer I gave you minutes ago. We'll see what persons who are interested bring. We've had a few thoughts. We'll see if it comes together.
All right. Well, Jamila says to Miss Marjorie, who says, "What about Georgetown North?" She says, "We desperately need a new candidate in that area." Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning again, Sandra. And good morning, Auntie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy to see your face. And good morning, Andre.
Good morning.
Sandra.
Yes, ma'am.
Of course, I'm still listening to your show and I'm still engaging. And I had a question written to me.
Okay.
When I don't know if you saw my comment when I said that his grandmother, Miss Francis, was the matriarch of Central. And I think Auntie could speak a little bit about her as well in his upbringing and the way that she mothered that entire Central community. And now his mother and his aunt sort of picked up from her. And let me just say, I'm not making an endorsement here. I love Auntie, I love Lee, I love Paulo, I love all of these boys. They were like my brothers growing up. And I just want to say, Mama Jean was Mama to us. Because Auntie may not remember this, but we were known as the little Archies. So everybody took care of us just because we were the little Archies. And
all
so
right.
we walked home from school together. Let me finish, please. We walked home from school together. If it was raining, we stopped at Mama Jean's house. And then Paulo and Lee were given umbrellas and towels, and then they had to walk us home. And the instructions were, and come right back. So to the person who's asking me, when I spoke about Miss Francis being the matriarch, the question they're putting to me, what has Auntie done for Central?
Okay.
I thought that he covered that very well in his introduction and going along. So I said they have to ask him that directly, either by call or put it in writing. And like I said, this is not an endorsement from me to Auntie, but I am speaking about Auntie as I know him, because I do know him.
All right. Thank you
caller,
so much.
Maybe Auntie can answer that question.
Appreciate it. All right. We do have another caller, and I know they've been calling, so let's grab this one really quickly. Good morning, caller. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, honey child. How are you?
Good morning, honey child. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I'm about to get blocked for your brownies.
What happened? Did you give your sister any last night?
No.
You are so wrong.
Block me.
So to put it in context, bring our listeners up to speed.
Yes.
Last night, Mr. Alric Lindsay had his meeting, and I decided to support him by making a batch of my ultra famous brownies. And I took them, and Amelia had the audacity and the nerves, honey child, to sit down there and eat brownies and not take none for her sister. With sisters like this, I don't know, boy. Oh my goodness! Why didn't you take her any?
Pardon me?
Why didn't you take her some? There's plenty there.
I know I have some store for her, man.
Okay, all right, all right.
To tease her. Hi, my good friend, my MP from West Bay. Hello, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning, Auntie. How are
Good morning.
you?
I'm good. Good morning.
Good, good. Now, Auntie, I know you well. I know you to be a quiet person. I know you to be especially an awesome person when you're taking care of one of my favorite seniors, your mom. Love her dearly. Anything we put to you that she needs, you see to it she gets it. Upon the situation now that you are running for Georgetown Central, my questions are, what have you contributed to Georgetown Central community, knowing the situation that it's in with the drugs and the illegal number selling and all of that is so have been so heavy in that area for years. What have you contributed towards that and cleaning up of Central Scranton? Right now we have this $9 million park building in the heart of Central Scranton, surrounded by drugs and guns. I would really like to see that place get cleaner, care for our seniors, the condition that some of our seniors, and when we hitting seniors, you're hitting my heart. The condition that some seniors are living in that community, it's mind blowing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amelia.
So I'm just trying to figure out what is it that has been done on your behalf for this, and what are your intentions moving forward?
Right. Thank you so much. So, one of the questions, and it's a fair question that we always ask candidates, is about their community involvement, because we want to see people who come with some degree of a track record already. Obviously, we know that you're not an MP yet, but tell us what roles have you played within the community, especially for Georgetown Central? And if you've done anything specific to seniors, you can tell us a bit about that as well.
Well, very good question. And I mean, it's one of the things we talk about directly, and being in town is very complex, and there's different dynamics in town. And if you want to look at it in terms of actually Central itself being more in the immediate area of, I would say, Martin Square, down in the back, that sort of thing. So this is not something that is overnight to start off with. This is something that has been rooted, unfortunately, in the neighborhood, just like any other neighborhood in any other constituency, where, yes, it is known or been known to others who, what, or whatever might be transpiring. So it's not just a community issue, it's also taking other factors into place, the policing, previous administration, all of those things. And yes, there are things that have been done over the years where we had, are working closely with our neighborhood beat police officers, which have kind of dissipated over time. But in a lot of these community involvement, I've been involved, whether if it is cleanup, the Georgetown Central, Georgetown Sports Club itself, we've come in, and there are things that, whether I'm also working directly on the front, also in the back, because there's a lot of things that happen. You don't have to always have a face up there. And I mean, goes back to the other community services that is out there working in these areas. Collaboration is about networking, and I've been involved in some of those discussions where elderly individuals, encouraging individuals even go out and partake in some of these senior events that is happening, where sometimes we'll have, one group might only look out for a certain group or whatever, but to look at things holistically. So everyone may not have necessarily seen my face out there directly in every instances, but there are things that have been happening behind the scenes. Again, going back to my first and foremost point, being the one that was ultimately involved with getting the park started, and being involved with that over the years, even when the minister at the time was there. I've been involved throughout there, whether it's giving guidance, discussions, or committee in terms of how we would like to see things move forward, how to control or to make sure that everybody is involved in one way, shape, or form. So, yes, these issues of drugs and all of these things, yes, we have to look at those collectively. I may have my personal view, how we address it, how we move forward it, because there is a multiplier effect that's involved in it. Things are very sensitive, how we go about it. You know, so again, this is about leadership, getting all the relevant parties involved in how we could address this, not only from a community perspective, but on a country on a whole. So yes, we got all the issues and the national issues that comes to some of these things, drugs, lottery, that not to say much, but you have to put how will that also be impacted going forward.
That's right. And I think in a nutshell, in all of the answers that Auntie has given today, he's been in the background. You can't, and to my mind, diminish or devalue the role that sports plays in the community, how it brings people together, how it allows individuals to channel their energies in positive activity rather than drift to negative activities. So what he has done is being an integral part of that, is now taking his community commitment to the next level of now entering the race and contesting a seat so that he can be an MP and have more direct impact than indirect impact.
All right. We're going to start to wrap it up a little bit here, folks. Prosperity Purpose said we need people with principles in the house. Making a note here, I'm not a Caymanian and I really don't know him. However, his humbleness speaks out loudly for him. Thank you, Prosperity. Damien says that should be for the MP in charge of the police. Remember, that's the governor, actually, who the police fall under in terms of direct responsibility. Priscilla says, honestly, all of our lower income communities are still like that, despite having representation for 30 plus years. Anthony Russell says, Georgetown Central seems to have some good persons of the soil with good intentions, solid individuals. Good luck, guys. We had Miss Tanya says, within Humble, we see a person very sure of himself in every category of his life, be it business or personal, and having empathy. Such a person can afford to be humble. Yes. Miss Janetta says, so proud of you, Auntie. That's right. We from Georgetown GTC were brought up with strong Christian values and respect for everyone. Wishing you success, as I know you will represent well. Jacqueline Ebank says, what is their recommendations in immigration reform? For example, anchor babies, PR, status grants. I think we'll get to some of these issues because I know we're going to do shows now going forward on specific issues.
Correct.
Andre, so you can certainly jot that one down.
Yes.
There was another one. Oh, Lemon Drop says, blessed day. I hope the people vote in Mr. Bryan again and also Mr. Moon. Because of their age and the way they have interacted with the people, we need relatable young men to help the central area. So just to be clear, Lemon Drop, you can't get them both. It's either or either situation. They are running against each other, Lemon Drop. So it's either this, or this. Yes. So you're going to have to make a choice between one or the other. Parky, some little sparkly, I think those are star emojis. Miss Darlene had a little chuckle. Miss Ramelia, go give your sister her brownies, please. I don't want no fighting between the two of you for this weekend. Good morning, caller. Ooh, honey child. What's that background noise?
I am so sorry.
Yes.
Good morning, Auntie. Good morning.
That you, troublemaker, eating my brownies last night?
That's me. That's me here. I just wanted to give a quick call to ask a question to Anthony, and I guess, Andre, you can chime in if you want. So over the last, I would say, 3 months in this country, we have seen two events that were particularly jarring for me. One, the riffraff issue with the fence and the Alpers in Westway, and as of late, more egregious, the event with Mr. Larry McGean, who assaulted a young man, pulled him out of his car. I mean, these events are seemingly becoming more prevalent. We're hearing about it before they were covered up and not so widely, on display, but now it's becoming more prevalent, it's becoming more public, and it's getting worse. And forgive me, I'm not trying to create an us and them narrative, but what I personally feel is expat versus Caymanian beat down, for lack of a better word, is becoming more prevalent. And I was hoping, or wondering, what were y'all's sentiments? How do you feel about that? What is the best way that you believe that we can go forward and tackle those issues, and how would we address them? And, so that we can curtail this behavior, that people don't feel so brazen and emboldened to say the things that they say against Caymanians, do the things that they do against Caymanians without seemingly any sort of consequence, So I will just ask my question and leave it there and just listen in. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right.
I'll take that one.
Mm-hmm.
So going in chronological order, let's take the Indigo incident.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a protest. And if you recall, Sandra, I was there at that protest with a number of other TCCP members, because it was important to show that type of rhetoric and that type of behavior is not good for the community as a whole. No one should be talking to anybody like that. That is not the Cayman that we know and love. Mm-hmm. And a outpouring needed to have been shown
mm-hmm.
that is unacceptable.
Yes.
And to send a clear message, because I think the comment I made at the interview at the time, we don't want to pop up again in East End the next weekend and then have to pop up again in the next weekend in the BRAC. None of that is acceptable, and it's not the Cayman that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And in speaking to a number of people who were at that protest, I think the same sentiment was pretty much unanimous through the audience.
Mm-hmm.
In the road incident, this is something now that I think everybody needs to be cognizant of, because we've seen it in the US, we've seen it in the UK. Everybody is essentially walking around with a television station in their pocket. So if any way you think that bad behavior won't be seen because back in the day, no one would have known this stuff was going to be happening. Number one, there's a natural deterrent because everybody is watching everything now. So you're not going to escape it. And number two, we have to ensure that we bring back the respect to our country. So this is why, and I'll touch on it and I'll read it again.
And our people, not just our country, but our people.
Our people.
Yes.
And go back to our objective in immigration is to protect Caymanians as a first priority, give security to valued, that's the word to emphasize, valued long-term residents, facilitate imported labor strictly as needed, while implementing stricter controls on granting of Caymanian status and limiting permanent residency options to preserve the demographic balance of the islands. So that who is now becoming on their way to permanent residency, who is now then granted the cherished right of Caymanians, or people who are fully assimilating with us, because that has been a secret, one of the secrets and strong guiding principles of Caymanian success is once we were a community that was all working together, and once you were here and you were Caymanian, and you lean into the society to make it better as a whole. We do not like what we're seeing where we are fraying. We are one community, and we have to get back to that, not just in laws and in enforcement, but also in spirit. And I think a lot of good work happened in terms of having our Emancipation Day and bringing our story back to life. We have to maintain those traditions and not make it a one-time or one-term event, because that is what is going to ground us and take us into the future of having one community.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And speaking of that, I want to remind our listeners that we do have a protest that was finally approved just this morning, I think, by the RCIPS. They kind of dragged their feet on this one. The application was in Monday and it took them a while. They were arguing with the organizers that, there's not going to be enough parking there. But anywho, I countered that with many protests have been held there before. On a Saturday evening, there's ample parking in the area. So they have approved it. Tomorrow evening, right by Governor's Beach, next to the governor's residence, 3 p.m. Come on out, folks. Saturday, March the 1st. And this is all about showing up, standing strong and united to say that what went down with Larry and Linda against a young 17-year-old Caymanian young man was completely wrong. We would not want that to happen to anyone, but it was even more egregious that it was the Caymanian, and the young man, was not the aggressor in this situation. We were quite frankly not happy with how the RCIPS has gone about handling the situation to date. Do feel free to reach out. I can pass on information for the organizers of this. We have a right, a democratic and constitutional right to protest. That's part of our freedom of speech rights in the bill and the what's it called again? Bill of Rights. Yes.
Bill of Rights.
Yeah. So, exercise that right. Of course, we always encourage people that it's all about peaceful protest, but we will be heard, and people will be out there tomorrow. So please come out. We can do this and really, really force people to pay attention to the people in this country who feel for too long that their voices and their messages have been ignored. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sandra. Shiv here again. I just need to make a quick clarification because I know that RCIPS is tuned in. I was just said that. I just need to make a quick clarification on what you said. It is not, the protest is not at the public beach. It is on the sidewalk, directly in front of the governor's residence.
Yes.
We are prohibited from protesting on the beach. The beach can be used for public parking only. So I just want to be clear and want to clarify that. It's 3 p.m. tomorrow. Please come out, bring your signs, lend your voice, show your support. What happened is unfathomable. As a female in this country, as a mother, especially as a mother of a son, I am disgusted and outraged by what took place. I am even more disgusted and outraged by the response of the commissioner. I'm sorry, it was inappropriate. The response was simply not sufficient and not what we needed. And until this day, we do not have an update as to what are the recourses that they have taken against who I think the public at large, a vast majority of them being in the legal profession, have said, what on earth is going on here? I don't understand. So I just want to encourage everybody to please come out, bring your signs, bring your hats, bring your water. It's going to be a hot day, but please show up in numbers because we must show up for each other. If we can't show up for each other and share in the same disgust for what actually took place, I don't know what's going to unite us. And it's unfortunate that this is what it takes to bring us together, but better than nothing, in my opinion, better than nothing. But we need to put an end to this type of behavior, and we need to send a very strong message to people who are even entertaining the idea of doing this sort of garbage. We need to send a strong and clear message that we are not going to tolerate this, but we also need our RCIPS on board that this type of foolishness has to stop. It has to stop. So again, it's tomorrow on the sidewalk of the governor's residence at 3 p.m. I'll leave you guys there.
The
Thank
flyer
you.
says the governor's house broadly, but obviously we're not inside her house. We're not going on the governor's property. It'll be in like the front of, like she said, on the sidewalk. All right, folks. So coming up.
So to give folks a visual then, that would be on the side of the Weston.
Yes.
And not the curbside of Governor Square and Costulas.
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ms. Lavana said she's going to be there, and Ms. Brenda says please represent her.
So a quick question. I would like to share the same sentiment of the caller and Mr. And Andre, what he shared earlier on the incident. For me, it is great that we came together as a people and showed up. But also, I would like to see us come together all the time, not only just in matter of crisis. And that's about moving our people forward together as one. Yes, whether we feel outnumbered one way, shape, or the other, we still have to come together as one all the time.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, to your point, Ms. Brenda says we need to have more of these protests. Caymanians, stay awake. Just to clarify something, Mr. Denver, he says RCIP needs to drop these charges against the young man and charge the aggressive opponent. So they haven't charged him. they arrested him. So remember that under the English legal system, the criminal system, there's two very different things that happen. There's an arrest, and normally it's on suspicion of something. And then they continue their investigations, and then they decide in conjunction with the DPP's office whether to charge someone. He was arrested at the scene the evening of the incident, but by 9 o'clock he was released, and we do not expect, RCAPS, you listening? We do not expect to see any charges coming out of this in relation to him. We expect to see other charges coming for the other party who was the aggressor and who assaulted him. So we will keep you guys updated on the RCIPS and further development. So yes, to answer another question, they did eventually approve it. And, so we want you guys to come out in significant numbers tomorrow. Now, unfortunately, I have a funeral. As many of you know, Dave Rocket was my brother, and his funeral service is actually tomorrow evening, quite late in the evening at 4 o'clock, which I thought was a little bit late. But anyway, I have been asked, by family to live stream that, so I will be at that venue. But don't worry, CMR will have someone there as we did last time. Hopefully, Miss Elizabeth is available. She'll be on location live streaming and asking you guys some pertinent questions. So make sure that you do come out and fully represent. So thank you all so much. And of course, I did inform you guys that Larry is on a work permit, and his work permit is coming up for renewal here shortly. So we hope that that work permit is not renewed. And we're starting a petition. There's going to be an electronic version of the petition. And at the protest yesterday, there will be a physical petition sheet for you to sign as well, which basically we're going to submit to WORC to say that this man has failed and not passed the test. Let me tell you what it's called. In law, there's a character and reputational element to whether or not you get a work permit. And he's actually applying for PR. So God knows we don't want him to get that far in the process. All right. So this anonymous message came in at 9:47, says, kaboom, love him. I have someone to vote for. He's got my vote from Crew Road. So Anthony, the response to you this morning has no doubt, I'm sure, humbled you even more. And, the way forward now for you, tell us what we can expect. The voters in Georgetown Central, what can they expect? You're going to be doing meetings, groundwork. Tell us.
Yes, I still have a lot of groundwork to do, canvassing, and also I'll be having community meetings or yard meetings in the very respective areas. So that's going to be, over the next 2 months, not far away. Basically, also not only just sharing vision, but also learning and getting more of the pulse of the people. So that's going to be the primary task at hand and moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Appreciate you. Auntie, I think you did pretty good for your first time on the Cold Hard Truth. A lot of people scared of me, apparently. I didn't bite you, right? Yes, you survived. Absolutely. Andre, some final thoughts.
Final thoughts on the current issue of the protests. Let's hope we do not have to continue to do this, because that's not a healthy sign of our country. Our country, the Caymanian way, is one of respect. Yes, there are differences of opinion. Yes, tempers can flare, but this is not the way to handle any situation, and it's not the Caymanian way. And we as leaders have to, I think, exemplify an example of composure and peaceful resolution to incidents. And as you say, Sandra, there will folks who have other commitments. Like yourself, you have just mentioned, it doesn't mean that because you're not there, you don't care. Sometimes life happens and you're torn between having to honor a commitment between a family or a service, and you can't be, unfortunately, in two places at once. But there are other ways that you can show that you care, even if you're not there on the day.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would mention,
will be represented for sure, because we know
well represented
and stuff really rely on our live streams to be able to stay connected to what's happening.
And there will be people who can represent an entire group or community without all of them having to show up if they do have legitimate other commitments. Mm-hmm. On the reason why we are here, and again close by saying a heartfelt thank you to Anthony for his service, to be able to step up to the plate. I've said it before, I said it when we launched with Natasha and Robert. It is not an easy task by any stretch to put yourself forward for essentially a public job interview. To take that brave step as a leap of faith and leave a very good job because you want to serve your country in a higher capacity is extraordinarily admirable. We can't be happier than to welcome you to the team. We know that it can't be easy. And we know, let's just be real, he had friends and family who said, you know, why go with Andre and the Quitters? Why go with Andre and the Quitters? That's what we keep hearing. But look, we stepped away from vanity projects. We resigned from collusion. We resigned from side deals. We resigned to stand up for our values. And if an entity that you're a part of no longer represents your values, then your duty is to resign. If I'm not mistaken, Sandra, a clip that I was shown, I hope it wasn't AI generated, that the current member for Georgetown Central mentioned on your show on Wednesday that if the party he's now joined didn't honor the commitments to him, he would resign. So now why begrudge other people who have done exactly the same thing, that when matters are occurring that do not fit within your values, particularly when those values impact the entire country, then your job is to remove yourself from that situation rather than be bound by it. And as far as I could see, if that clip was Wednesday, an hour and 10 minutes in, was on your show, he explained the principle of collective responsibility beautifully. Couldn't have said it better myself. So with that, joining a team that's principled and valued, faith-based, and putting its peoples first, let Auntie and the TCCP take this country forward in a meaningful and positive way for generations. God bless you all. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks very much. One final caller. Quick question or comment.
Good morning.
Morning, honey child.
Congrats to Auntie. I know where he coming from. Good family, good people, well respected.
All right. Thank
and
you,
one
ma'am.
more thing
Yes,
I want
ma'am.
to say to Andre, tell him you guys are quitters, but not corrupted. You're for the right thing, and go TCPP, the best party for Cayman, not corrupted. Running for right, and don't listen what people say about quitters. It's better to be quitters than corrupted and cheaters.
All right, ma'am.
Ma'am, thank you for that. I'll have the comms team work on that. Running for right. Thank you, ma'am.
Final written comment on WhatsApp says, blessed good morning, Sandir. So happy for Anthony, Auntie Ramon, my schoolmate, so humble, kind, so much into our community, smart, etc. He has just a great chance as well with the TCCP. And yes, Mr. Andre, such a phenomenal team leader. And next for him, Andre, is to become premier. I wish I could vote for them as well, but my peers are with them. Amen. And on that note, folks, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Another segment with TCCP, and we will be here on Monday. Don't forget now, Monday is the big day. Monday's nomination day. Everybody has to put their money where their mouth is, and they're going to do the official process. We're going to be following TCCP. They got a bus, that's going to go from Boddentown is...
Boddentown East,
yes,
come down west.
All the way to the west. And we're going to follow them along with the journey. We're going to have other candidates jumping on, and we'll see exactly where people are at, what's going on. You get the insight, just like we did in 2021. You're going to get the insight into the electoral process and how it all happens right here on our screen. Now, listen, last time we ran for 7 hours and 15 minutes. Ooh, honey child. Wow. I didn't know I could talk so much, but there you go.
I never doubted you.
We're going to have some experts joining in throughout the day. Some former MPs talking about what it's like on nomination day, the excitement. We're going to be looking at some of the candidates. We're finally going to, once they're confirmed, start to get your thoughts on how things are shaping up and how things are looking. So make sure you do not miss a beat come Wednesday, March the 3rd, nomination day. Thank you to Andre, and thank you to Mr. Anthony Ramon.
Thank you.
God bless. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Folks, have a safe and wonderful weekend. I got to go to work so we can pay some bills around here. Please be safe. Remember, no drinking and driving. You want to drink? Call a friend who isn't drinking, or call a taxi, call a designated driver. And I will see you guys on Monday morning. So excited. I love nomination day because this is when, yes, honey child, the train is in gear and we are ready to go. Until then, have a fabulous weekend.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Cold Hard Truth on Bobo 89.1 FM. Cayman's #1 talk show is live weekdays from 7:30 a.m. Never miss an episode again. Watch anytime on CMR's Facebook and YouTube channels for the latest show episodes. Don't forget to follow us online on our social media channels. And visit CaymanMarlRoad.com for all the latest news and community happenings.